Hello, everybody. It is Hotline League episode 144. It's been a very quiet week. Nothing interesting has happened at all. We're just waiting for the second half of World's groups to start for North America to continue their dramatic attacks upon everyone else in every other region. Gonna be sick. Just kidding. Things have gone terrible. But I'm joined right now by my constant co-host, Mark Zimmerman. How's it going, Mark?
I'm tweeting. I can't do two things at once. Save me, Spawn.
Okay. We're going to return to Mark later on because he's trying to figure out how to type words into a Twitter box. Spawn is here. Spawn, how's it going?
I honestly think I am one of the few people that can say I have had a worse week than North America.
Yes.
Which is honestly, that's a big call to make, I know, but it has definitely been an interesting week to be an Oceanic esports person.
Yes. Well, this is the Sad Boys episode. So if you guys are, if you're tuning
looking
in
for a pick-me-up.
By the way, I should say, here's a good chance to plug the podcast. People seem to always ask us if this is on Spotify or sorry, they ask, when is this going to be on Spotify, or have we considered putting it on Spotify? This shit's been available on podcast networks for years, so go. But anyway, if you're listening to the audio version somewhere in your car, on your way to work, at work, if you're watching the YouTube video and you just don't want to feel bad, maybe skip this episode is all I would say. Really quickly, shout out to Alienware and Draftbuff, our sponsors for the show. We'll talk more about them in a little bit. But let's do some reintroductions once more. Mark, are you done with your tweet?
Yeah, I tweeted.
How's your week been?
It's been okay. Worlds is going on. Genshin Impact's going on. Those are the two big ones.
Yeah, you and I, for those that don't know, Mark and I this week has just been Mark and I staying up late, actually staying up all night, playing Genshin Impact, and watching North America embarrass themselves on the international stage.
So what's funny is my Genshin Impact tweet from last night got 1.8k likes. I feel like I should just become a Genshin Impact. Like,
did it?
There's more for me there than in North America.
Holy crap! You got 70 retweets too. Wow, that's on the upper percentile of your world.
That's like
content.
A Worlds tweet.
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly. I need to tweet about Genshin Impact.
Anyways, I almost tweeted this and I got too lazy to try and figure out how to squeeze it all into 240 characters, but I really don't know how to feel as like an NA fan about this Worlds. It was like simultaneously hit my expectations, did slightly better than my expectations, and also drastically worse than my expectations. I actually don't really have a single feeling on NA at Worlds this year.
Really? I'm going to go out on a limb and say Team Liquid exceeded my expectations. 3-3 from them, I think, was a very good performance overall. Obviously, when you get down into the nitty-gritty, you have to say, well, you dropped a game to Machi, but then you beat G2. But I think overall, Team Liquid did a really great job at Worlds, and they, for a third seed coming out of North America, I would say getting equal wins to losses, that's a plus.
We're going to talk more about North America in a second. I want to open up the discussion, but as we're still going through our week stuff, so Spawn, you've had a tough week because Kobe is not playing Path of Exile. That's what you were talking about right before the start of the show, right?
Yeah, so what happened, right, is like a bunch of the producers and casters, we all play Path of Exile because obviously I'm the only one on a normal sleep schedule, like normal-ish. I'm going to bed at about 3 a.m. at the moment. So between about 9 when my partner goes to bed and my son's in bed till about 3 or 4, we all sit in Discord and we play Path of Exile together. Now, Kobe is a big Path of Exile fan. Like, Kobe's a Path of Exile nut. And he was telling me how he could make Cracklands work, Crackling Lands. And I'd already played it. And I was like, Kobe, Crackling Lance is shit. Like, it's a terrible skill. Do not do it. But he's like, no, I'm going to make it work. I'm like, okay, no worries. And he starts a character and he's like, give me all this gear. So being a good friend, I load him up. Like, I'm like, you know what, Kobe? Free of charge. Great Stygian. Here's a chest piece. Here's some boots. Here's a helm. And he just collects all this gear. 2 hours later, he quits. Has not logged onto the character since and still just has all my stuff. So go wake Kobe up. And like, I want you to like Stewie from Family Guy. Like, where's my money, man? Like, I want his head in a toilet at some point. Like,
yeah.
This
waking him up
right
would
here.
be the equivalent of head in the toilet. He is He's really not a morning person. I would put it that way. And he's a light sleeper, so it's been
time in LA. Well, lucky for him, it's 8:30 at night, so it's not about being a morning person anymore, Travis. It's about being an afternoon person.
Yes, he will be very upset. Like he might be awake right now, very angry because I have had to do the show and talk, and I did an interview with Steve earlier, and he's a light sleeper. Anyway.
By the way, Steve's liquid, guys. Travis can call him Steve because they're like close like that. Just
nobody
in case,
calls him liquid
everyone...
anymore. I know that you're super old school, but
I'm close with top players.
Anyway, no, Spawn. I mean, I want to talk about North America in a second, but some people that listen to this but don't follow, like, Riot basically put out 2 paragraphs that killed your entire scene from orbit, and like just moved on with Worlds. And so it doesn't surprise me if a lot of people are completely unaware of this. I actually need to do a video about it soon to even just inform my channel, who people might not even be aware that this is a thing, especially because it has immediate impacts on the LCS. But I mean, how's this been? Because it sounds like you found out about it based off of some emo tweeting I saw approximately 60 minutes before the post went out.
Yeah, so good journalism, good research.
Thank you, yes.
Travis. Yeah, so pretty much for those that don't know, I'm a commentator on the Oceanic Pro League, and I am also a general manager of a team in Oceania called Order. So obviously this decision by Riot impacts me greatly. I have a partner, I have a kid, I have another kid that's being born in 2 weeks.
I didn't even know that. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I've got a house. I built this house, not with my bare hands, but with other people's bare hands, and therefore it cost me money. So yeah, this I think it was like a 300-word announcement as being spammed in chat. Decision like really greatly impacted me. So pretty much the TLDR of the situation, right, is that Riot came out and said it's no longer financially responsible to have a League of Legends professional league, like so a top tier league out of Oceania, that they would still support MSI and Worlds coming from the region. However, that the OPL was going to be dissolved effective immediately. And the OPL is the biggest league in Australia, in my opinion. It's the most professional broadcast. It's up there, and it's got 8 teams with gaming houses and players playing effectively full time. So this was a pretty big deal when you think about that. 5 players per team, a sub, a coach, a general manager, pretty much on every single team. You look at the people on the broadcast staff. This is probably 100 people plus that have been directly impacted, i.e. you will no longer have a job going forward, and probably 6x that will be indirectly affected, just because League of Legends is such a big deal in this region. So obviously a huge day for Oceanic history, not the happiest day. As you mentioned, I found off the back end of a call that was made through to the ownership group. It has been reported to be about 60 minutes. I wouldn't know the exact timeline because that day is a little bit of a blur. But then off the back end of that, yeah, the words came out, and I guess what's done is done.
So I know everybody's kind of scrambling to figure out what happens next, but can you, I don't know if there is any insight you can share with us. I mean, we've seen I've seen GMs and players and everybody basically looking for jobs in NA, because what people might have missed out on or might not know is that in that very elaborate article that Riot posted, there was a line about how now everyone who's an Oceanic player is considered a member of North America. We've brought you into the union, and and so your players are now eligible to be on LCS teams. Actually, I don't know if that's like a good thing or a bad thing. For North America, it feels like a good thing because you guys have great talents that we've seen, but also like I gotta imagine that this is pretty destructive to the remaining like if you guys wanted to build out a scene independent of Riot or work with partners there or whatever, like now your top talent has a much better opportunity to go compete in North America potentially. So anyway, all this to get at, like, is there anything you can talk about, or has there been any discussions on what happens next, or I don't know?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I can say is the Central North American team, the esports team that is now in charge of the Oceanic League of Legends scene, has been quite supportive, and I've had a couple of conversations reaching out about what next steps could look like. We have an incredibly passionate ownership group over here, full of great people that are all really good businessmen and women first, but also passionate esports people.
You're talking about in Oceania?
Yeah, in Oceania, that are going to help try and drive this scene forward. And I've spoken about my willingness to be a part of the solution as well. So I've been trying to do everything I can, even if it's just as basic as wearing a t-shirt on Worlds that shows my love for the region. Also trying to rebuild something here. But as you said, like there is a lot of opportunity right now if you are an Oceanic player to be able to get picked up by an international squad. Now, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on in the world that makes that probably not ideal for it to happen right now. For example, COVID-19 is still happening, and to get in and out of countries turns out is very, very difficult at the moment. The election and how visas are being treated off the back end of that, and a whole bunch of other stuff, right? That political or otherwise, not really the time or place to get into. But
yeah, excuse me, Spawn. I've heard keep politics out of esports. It has nothing to do with esports. Okay, just a momentary bump and the recording there. Sorry, everyone. But just that, can you repeat that little bit at the end again, Spawn, if you recall?
So yeah, pretty much what I was saying is like there are a ton of people like general managers, coaches, and players that are all looking to make that oceanic leap to international, primarily North America, I would assume. And then obviously there is a group of people that are currently looking at what a sustainable domestic model would look like with the help of Riot Games Central.
Cool. One question for me is, and I admit I had not paid very much attention to OCE before this, but one of the things that I've heard from some folks is like, hey, this wasn't that much of a surprise because it seemed as though the league had been for a while trying to find its footing. Maybe the viewership wasn't there and there were issues perhaps finding commercial partners for the league, etc. So, I mean, I think a lot of people probably did not expect it in this manner, but do you feel like this came out of nowhere, or was this something that people had been concerned about for a while?
Yeah, so it's a good question, right? Because there's always a yes and a no to the answer of this one. So what I would say is that Riot did open up dialogue, to my understanding, of what the future of a sustainable league would look like, and the fact that we needed to work towards hitting that target. And that was talked about 12 to 18 months ago. So, there was a conversation about that. But then you come into this year, and there were some proposed solutions from the ownership group. I had a proposed solution that I wanted to try and work towards personally. But what happened is obviously Riot ran the OPL again, and 3 new commercial partners were brought on. The OPL is sponsored by EPOS, McDonald's, and NeoSurf. These are not small companies. Like McDonald's in itself is like a pretty big brand, right?
What's the first one?
EPOS. They're like Sennheiser's gaming headset brand.
Gotcha.
So there were some sponsors there. Historically, they had also been sponsored by people like Hungry Jacks and things like that. So I think what the owners kind of saw and what fans would have seen from the outside is like there was all this rumbling about the fact that the league needed to commercialize and get some more viewership. Viewership did go up. If you look at like all the ES charts and things like that that are available publicly, people have talked about it. There were 2 new sponsors brought onto the show. So it looked like it was moving in the right direction. So was there warning that this was coming? Yes. Did people expect it to happen off the back end of that warning? I think not, because it did look like it was trending in the right direction. And whilst it might not have been there this year, if one sponsor becomes 3 and then becomes 5, maybe you're there in a year or 2 years' time.
Right. Mark, I don't know if you have any questions about all this stuff, or as it relates to LCS even.
No, I mean, it feels really shitty. Like I have more like personal level questions than like environment level ones, which I think like those like that's where my head's more at than the like
shoot them through. Ask me anything.
No.
I mean, I'll ask one.
We've already been talking a little bit.
I'll ask one if Mark doesn't, especially because maybe you guys have talked a little bit about it since you've been on the broadcast together. But I mean, one of my questions, Spawn, are you okay? You mentioned you've built a house with other people's hands, and you have a partner and about to have 2 children. Is Is there a world where you don't live in Australia in the future?
So this is obviously always tough to answer.
Yeah.
So is there a world where an international opportunity comes up that I take? Like the answer is yes. Like absolutely there is a world that, the LCK announcement came out. I got some retweets on that. Maybe there's a couple of opportunities in North America at the moment, or one in particular that I'm looking at really closely at the moment. But what I would say is that I hope to always call Australia home and like work from overseas, but have home in Australia. And what I mean by that is like, I'm happy to go overseas during the splits and, pre-seasons and things like that. And, the LA to Australian time zone obviously isn't that bad because here we are by the magic of the computer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm interested in like.
So that sounds like it would probably like if you ended up in that situation, it would be. It sounds like you're not interested in moving your family.
No, I think Jenna loves Australia. We live very close to her family. Like, I think it's important for my kids to go to, an Australian school, go through the school system I had. Like, healthcare and stuff in Australia is like top tier.
Yeah.
But in saying that, like, I always use extremes to prove my point, which is a terrible way to argue with people because there's no way to argue back. But it's like, how often does Brad Pitt see his kids when he's filming? I would argue not very much. And I am kind of as handsome as Brad Pitt.
Spawn calls himself
the
the League of Legends Brad Pitt.
Do you make that argument with your partner, by the way? Is that what you say?
Absolutely. Yes. And Jenna's like, you're just a piece of shit. And I'm like, fantastic.
Yeah. I'd be like, and how much does Brad Pitt make while doing that?
Yeah. And that's what she says. And I'm like, well, Yeah.
You're like, yeah, but have you heard of these NA salaries? Oh my God. All right. Well, it sounds like if LCS or LCK wants Spawn, he's looking for Brad Pitt money, and then we'll be able to grab him just fine.
Correct, Amundo. I actually, and the great thing is that I have friends like Mark who have very kindly offered me their couch. If I ever need to live there for extended period of time, I'll just sleep on Mark's couch.
You'll be my third cat.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I hope you enjoy cats a lot because Mark's cats. Well, anyway. Sore subject. I guess we can also. So we obviously talked about OCE. I'm sure we'll get some calls about that. I'm super happy to have folks call in, especially because while this is a North American show, OCE is now North America. I think
which tastes the freedom.
Yes,
redraw the maps.
Yes. So according to Riot Games, if you live in Australia, you are actually a resident of North America, and I previously thought these were different continents, but
there's
my
a
understanding is
underneath the water that connects them.
Yeah.
Just gotta...
but we were also talking right at the start of the show about World's performance, and so, I know we need to get into calls soon, but maybe we can spare 5 minutes about expectations. And Spawn, you were saying you felt like they kind of met or exceeded your expectations, and Mark. Go ahead.
I did pull a caller that is NA, their take is NA did fine.
Sure.
So maybe we could talk about it with a caller.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I just didn't know if you wanted to expand really briefly on what you were saying at the start of the show about sort of where they ended up.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my ultimate thing was just I don't really know how to feel. I'm very conflicted. It went to expectations, even perhaps overperformed expectations, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily good performance because I was negative, and we still didn't get a team out of groups. And so on the one hand, I'm happy in air quotes that TL and FlyQuest actually were able to take games off of the number one seed from LPL and LEC, historically in the last 2 years, the top two regions, taking games off the number one seed feels good. Tournament favorites as well. Cool. But that feels like a consolation prize, and I'm still not really happy. So I don't know. It's a big, and then TSM itself is a huge meme. So the whole thing is I don't have one unified feel on it as an NA person.
Well, the OCE people in Twitch chat are now spamming Kaikona. So it sounds like they're already getting ready for their new world. Anyway, I guess we could start getting into calls then. Mark, are there any ground rules you want to lay? It looks like you've already pulled a couple.
I've already pulled a couple while we were talking. But yeah, if people haven't seen the show before, this is a live call-in show. You can go ahead and join up on the Discord or just spam Twitch chat with it when you get in there. Go ahead and join Pleb Calls or Pleb Calls 2 voice channels and mute your microphone once you get in there. No one wants to hear a mouth breather. And then go ahead in your Pleb Topics text channel up above. Go ahead and type whatever it is your take is. You think OCE will still perform great at MSI Worlds, or I don't know, whatever your take is. If it interests me, I will pull you into the waiting room where you'll hang out until it's your turn. I'll hop down, do a quick audio check with you, make sure you're good to go, and then we'll pull you into the on-air room to be talking with all of us.
Yep. And if you are a sub, first off, thank you for being a sub. Maybe if you have a Prime right now, you can drop it, and maybe if you're listening to the YouTube video or the Twitch or the podcast, you can go to twitch.tv/Travis Gafford and drop that as well. But you can also join the subtopics chat, which moves a little slower, and so that gives you a bit of a better chance of getting on the show. But no guarantees. We don't guarantee anybody anything.
Travis, you really got to work on your plug. Ready? This is how you do it.
Mark, go grab a caller while Spawn is doing this.
Think about how much of this show you just watched and how much of it you just enjoyed. That's time. Time is the most invaluable thing in the world. Now, just ascribe a dollar value to that time. You know, how much do you get paid at the moment? Is it more than $5 an hour? Because this show is going for $5, at least $5 an hour right now. So smash that subscribe button and get in there with Travis. Otherwise, we're cutting the show right now. It's going to end. I need a couple of people to actually. True. It sucks. No. Travis,
so yeah, that was the problem. Is when you start off. The ongoing joke with this show, and I tell myself that it's a joke, is that nobody's really enjoying it. So when you start off with the idea that people are enjoying the show, it's
Hey, I've just seen 3 pop up.
Yes.
I've seen 3 pop up.
Pay $5 an hour for ear torture.
Yes, thank you. Hey, with if you're a Prime gamer, they're no longer called Twitch Primes, but if you're a Prime gamer, you don't even need to pay the $5. You're already paying more to Bezos, and so he's going to pass some of that along to us. Anyway, I'll shout out those subs in a second.
That's when the tier 2s come in.
Yeah, yes, that's true. I'll shout out those subs in a second. But first we have Human Boy here, who is a Total War Skaven reference, who is currently playing Total War Warhammer 2 while on the show.
When people come on the show and their Discord shows them not really paying attention.
Yes. Well, either way, welcome back to the show. You've been on before, right?
Yeah, and I haven't paid attention. I listened to a whole Steve interview, Brock's interview, and then a bunch of nonsense about a non-region getting kicked out of league.
Jesus Christ!
Nah, just kidding. It's an entire continent. It's a fucking tragedy.
Spawn is not happy to be on the show based off of our first caller. Anyway,
well,
I was joking. I love.
Where are you calling from?
Rochester, Minnesota.
Rochester, Minnesota. Spoken like a true Skaven. Anyway. What do you want to talk about on the show?
I called a while ago saying NA will do fine at Worlds, and despite community sentiment, I actually think we did do fine. And one of our teams exploded, but that's, that happens. Like Mad Lions blew up, and we don't have 4 teams. One of ours blew up, one of theirs blew up. It's whatever. But like, if you think about it, going into a group with China, EU, and the PCS. I mean, the PCS isn't a joke. They usually don't do great, but they're not a joke either. And we went 3-3. That's fine. We actually went 1-1 with literally every team, which, normally we go 0-2 versus China. And then FlyQuest in a group that they were supposed to go, 1-5 by a lot of predictions, because UOL is also a pretty good team. And then they had Top Esports and DRX. Week 1 looked pretty sus, but week 2 they took DRX to a pretty good game, and then they beat Top, who's a tournament favorite, and then they kind of pounded on UOL. So, I mean, 3-3, 50% win rate when NA is the 4th best region. I say we take those.
Okay, well, let's be clear here. We're not 50-50 as a region. Like, you're doing what, Mark, where did we see this? Or was this a take or a tweet or something like that, where it was like, let's just call TSM their own...
Said it.
Azale said it, yeah. Like,
I think Azale tweeted it.
Let's decide that TSM is their own winless region, and otherwise we did 50-50. Look, I'd be feeling a lot better and saying we did fine if we had TSM go 0-6, which is disastrous and a calamity, and then like FlyQuest or TL limp out of groups. You know what I mean? Like at least then we average out to like, well, one of our teams just completely failed, and then the other team overperformed. Then you end up at kind of like a 50-50 point. Like I'm not saying. I was actually thinking about this earlier, and I referenced it in the Steve interview, which is up on my channel. If you haven't, somebody's listening and they haven't seen it, they can go do that. But part of me wants to say that we did okay given the teams that we sent. And if you think about it, TSM hasn't been to Worlds in years, and they did not look good. And then with a roster change in between the splits, they what? Mark?
I like Spawn's face. I totally agree with it.
Oh,
given the teams we sent, the top 3 teams, if we had sent 4 and 5, they would have done much better. Everyone,
no, okay, but
Golden Guardians instead.
Okay, here, let me explain.
Well, I mean, here's
in the
thing
past,
is saying that like TSM hasn't been there in years. Top Esports has never been. Sooning's never been. A lot of these players have never been to Worlds, and they do well. Like I don't think. I forget who was. I forget who was going off.
I don't know if at some point in time I'll be able to finish my point, but if I can, let me know.
Go ahead.
Okay.
You have the floor.
First off, I don't think we are China, where we're just this mill that is generating amazing talents and amazing teams and constantly expanding the league. So I don't think comparing us to top is a necessarily fair assessment. But what I'm saying is that in the past we have sent teams like Cloud9 or a TL who was coming off of 4 back-to-back, whatever the Captain Flyers call is, victories. This time we sent a TL that was 9th place in spring, FlyQuest, which is FlyQuest, and have managed to turn themselves around a little bit this year, and we sent TSM, who, again, like is a team that hasn't been to Worlds for 2 years, has been pretty disappointing historically, and has only managed to get their shit together right before Worlds in summer split. And so going into this, like I think it's fine to have looked at these 3 teams and had less confidence in them than we did, for instance, when we sent TL and Cloud9 last year. That's kind of my point.
See, the way I look at it is like if narratively you look at LCS from a narrative point of view, you can spin it however you want. And
that's what I do. That's my thing. Yeah.
So if you look at it actually analytically, and this is like what, like obviously mine and Mark's challenges on the broadcast, is what you actually sent is the first North American team that was able to win through playing top side of the map in a top side meta. So you're expecting TSM to do well automatically. They're one of the first North American teams you guys have ever sent that plays the game to the appropriate meta at the best tournament in the world. They went 0-6. That's a failure, in my opinion. You sent FlyQuest, who, once again, my understanding is they have one of the best junglers in the league, if not the best jungler, that is willing to play more up-tempo League of Legends than historically North America has been able to play. Once again, that's a successful meta that is played on the world stage. They did fine. And then you have Team Liquid that is slow and methodical, and you were hoping they would get back to their slow, methodical playstyle. And hey, when they played that way, when they altered their draft in the second round robin, they had some clever level 1, sure, but even in the games where they got super far ahead, they still fell back to objective control and team fighting. Like, that's why, for me, Team Liquid is a team that, bang, they get the pass mark straight away. Team Liquid, if you break it down, like, actually passed or succeeded like my expectations of what the 3rd seed would do. I think FlyQuest is like close. You could make an argument either way. TSM, in my head, outright failed at Worlds.
I mean, so you're going to have a hard time finding anyone who disagrees with you there.
But like, this isn't a Meatloaf song, right? It's not 2 out of 3 ain't bad. You don't get to disregard a third of your region. You have to take them all on account. Like,
wait, but isn't that what?
Can I have one bad faith argument?
Well, hang on. I just want to point out, it's very funny because at the start of this, Spawn was saying like, "Oh, I think NA actually did fine," and like, blah blah.
Well, that's because I think NA equals OCE. So when you beat OCE, you'd already exceeded my expectations.
Okay.
Good job.
Nice. Anyway, Human Boy, sorry, you were going to make a bad faith argument.
Give us your bad faith take.
There's one bad faith argument. When LGD or was it RNG? Did they fall out in groups or whatever? Whenever one LPL team completely shits the bed, you don't say LPL's a bad region. You're like, that team boomed. When you watch,
when it happened in 2015, I literally got memed for 4 years. Absolutely, that happens. I got
But no one says LPL is a bad region. They're like, that team boomed.
Because they
And
fucking won Worlds, dude. What is this argument?
No, it's a bad faith argument. My point is watching TSM like the Dragon, where Graves walks up to 4 people and Galio's running away from just Graves instead of zoning him, and they let him get the Dragon.
All right.
TSM boomed pretty hard, so it's like,
all right, let's
you can't discount them, but they're not.
Yeah, TSM. I tweeted as much that TSM's collapse is on them, and it's not necessarily reflective of the entire region. But that just because you ignore that doesn't mean the rest of the region did well. We didn't get out of. We're the only major region that doesn't have a team out of groups.
2 years in a row.
2 years in a row.
This was actually, and the sad thing was, this was in many ways a better year than last year was, where we only beat LMS teams basically. Like we actually took games off major regions. I mean, TSM went 0-6. When Clutch went 0-6, it was against a lot of tournament favorites, which is why I actually felt less bad about.
And they were the 3rd seed,
they were the 3rd seed. They struggled in play-ins and stuff. You know, it wasn't like there were these expectations on them to actually do well in that group. So like, that's why this is a weird year for me, because like, okay, those 2 teams did better than last year and technically better than my expectations, but that's still not good. They didn't like overperform to the point that they actually got out of groups. TSM massively bombed and is like an embarrassment. So like, like this is why it's so hard for me to say NA did fine when is this like what you're saying NA fans should be happy with year over year from now? Because fine to me is like you're okay with it. So you're saying you're okay with NA never getting out again and having performances like this. You're fine with it.
Yes, in a way, and I'll keep it short because I know we got to move on. I'm fine with NA going 3-3. Not every year will that mean you don't get out of groups. Not every year will you not get a tiebreaker. Shit sucks that it happens. But like, I'm such a broken NA fan that compared to last year, where we just got clapped all day, every day, I take 3-3. I take that in spades every year.
Here's the thing. Another point that I forgot to mention, which was why I don't know how to feel about it. I had no hope at any point because our week 1 was worse than our week 2, and in a lot of times, a lot of the wins were pointless in a performance at Worlds perspective. From a like, are you going to get out or not? TL is kind of an exception, but like they had already done poorly in week 1 and already had the Machi.
Yeah, they only started performing when things were out of their control.
Right, which is how things often go for NA teams. Is like they play their best once they're out from under the gun a little bit. And so like that happened again with FlyQuest. And so like while it's cool they won and I'm happy about that, they didn't do it when it mattered to me. And so I don't know if I would have felt better about a promising week 1 and then a collapse. Like if you flip the 2 weeks, you know, like that might have felt worse in some ways from a hope perspective, but at least I would have had hope. Whereas this time I didn't have hope at any point. After TSM went 0-3, I was like, oh, we're doomed. And TL lost the game to Machi. I was like, that's going to come back and haunt them, sure enough. And FlyQuest, you know, just outmashing the group. I don't blame them. You know, they have a tournament favorite and another like dark horse tournament favorite in your group. It's a tough group. Same way like happened to Rogue. At least we weren't Rogue and lost to PCS and did worse than them. You know, like. But I don't know how I could ever look at this, and I don't think I can look at this Worlds and be fine with it. To disagree with the caller, the caller's ultimately fine with it going 3-3 and stuff. I can't be fine. I never felt hopeful as an NA fan. I didn't really ever feel good aside from maybe play-ins, and even then, like I said, I expected to do fine in play-ins. So,
look, I guess I kind of going back to what I was saying before. Spawn shut it down, but I will just say I think we did send weaker teams this year to Worlds, and I think that is why I'm less disappointed than I was last year. I guess you have to kind of hedge it, right? I'm disappointed that we now have 2 years in a row of bad shit. That feels really bad. If I look at this Worlds in isolation, like I don't think that we had. I mean, we did a hotline league with this with Kelsey and Hysterics, where they were basically saying, "Yeah, we don't think these teams are going to get out." Mark, you were agreeing with them, and then like the YouTube comments were really upset about it, but like. I don't think, even if we had a good jungler, even if we had TSM playing more closer to the meta than they previously have, I don't necessarily think that was a sign that we had that these teams were good, right? You can play to the meta, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're good.
I disagree, because a lot of the points that you made initially were, when the Spawn called the narrative, I agree. You're basically saying like, who's FlyQuest, and then, but like, and I know you said, oh, you know, LPS has so much talent and whatnot, but I'm just saying that like LPL has so much talent, but like if you're sending rookie teams, I don't see that as an excuse for why they would do poorly. I forget which analyst was talking about like rookie is just a buzzword for like it's basically an excuse machine, because there's plenty of rookie teams or like young
Mhm.
players who go out there and pop off despite being
Tyler
either-
Hero, my man.
There's LS. Okay. Yeah. I mean, like, it's true though that like you can see other regions rookies and younger players do well, and sometimes they fail, sometimes they don't. Sometimes players get better over the course of their career. So it's fair to say that like sometimes like Damwon's players were a lot of rookies last year, and they struggled a little bit. They still got out of groups and at least made quarters and stuff, but lost the best of 5. But like I don't know.
Can I raise one thing as well, because I see this a lot.
Yeah,
are
and then we'll
using
probably end the call, but
Cloud9's
go for it.
collapsing to justify North America's poor performance.
I don't think that's a good excuse.
Yeah, and the reason it's not a good excuse, because IG and FPX aren't here, and the LPL is fine. And guess what? They didn't win Split 1. They won the Worlds back-to-back years, right? And the LPL is still sending good teams. So a collapse of one team doesn't actually mean that your second team is somehow worse. Like, it actually means they're better because they beat that team.
I mean, don't you feel like... Okay, so one, I agree that the whole... Like, I'm never going to say that we sent bad teams because Cloud9 collapsed. I think we just sent bad teams. And so I think it's a separate thing. To your point, though, I don't... LPL has way more teams than us, and they have way more players, and they have all the stuff. So I definitely feel like if their first team doesn't... If their best team suddenly doesn't look good, and you send their second best team, I don't think that's the same as us sending our second best team, right? Like, I think that the gap is going to be greater because we have less teams as a whole, and so the skill disparity is probably going to be higher.
I don't quite agree with that, and I also don't agree with like we sent worse teams this year, because I mean, like, Clutch is our third best team. What world would they ever be better than?
Yeah. I'm not saying that
Liquid
the Clutch and TL thing is the same, but I do think if you average these 3 teams out, they were probably worse than last year. It's impossible to say because, like, I don't know. Maybe we could do a run-it episode on it, but
you would never. That's not how. You wouldn't be able to compare metas that way. I just think that, like, when you look at the average strength of North American teams, like going 3-3 and missing, it's like it's pretty normal,
Yeah.
Like, that's not out of the world. Like, TL did that multiple times.
They've done it 4 times now, haven't they? Is that the stat? 3 or 4 times, 3 and 3?
I think it might be 3 and 3.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, it's pretty standard. And the only swap is really Broxa for Smithy. I mean, Tactical for Double F, but Tactical played great. So I don't know. It's like, is TL that much weaker? Is this TSM that much weaker than the Hanser Sven versions?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't know. Doesn't really feel like it's that much weaker.
Mm-hmm.
Human Boy, thank you for the call. Anything you want to shout out before we move on to the next call?
Yeah, 2 things. The meme would be Summer in the Electric Counts, and on a more serious note, Spawn, it really sucks about OCE. I like the Dire Wolves. I watched them for a couple years, and it sucks.
Thanks, Human Boy. Appreciate it.
Have a good one.
So, yep.
Okay, on to the next caller. Some shout outs to some subs. We'll do one more caller and then we'll take a break. Fafo, MF Voodoo, the one and only Corbin, Sims Viking, Infamous X Pandit, Steve, or Liquid 112, Austin Hearth, Face Hair, Blitz 470, Frogman 2004, Ernesto, Quiblo, and Rico Suave, PJ Salt, Laughster. Still just shouting stuff out because Mark's not here. Mark Tater, Fafo, I think it's a Fafo, Typhonoid, Backlog Bandit, Smoke Dog, Ichiryu, Last Samurai 297, Gavo, Ordero, Quitmelb, Why So Wavi, and Blitz 470, who I just shouted out a second ago. Thanks for, I think you gifted a sub and maybe also subbed. But Blitz, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from the UK.
From the UK. What time is it there?
It's coming up to 5 a.m.
Wow. Well, it's kind of cool. Why are you up right now?
Well, I really love the show. Love all the takes and the whole kind of format of it. So I just really wanted to get involved, and I love the sound of my own voice. So all works out.
Wow.
You do have a nice voice.
It's cool that
that's very kind of you to say. Thank you very much.
Right now we have Australia, North America, and the UK all on the call. Anyway,
The whole colony.
yes. No. Anyway, Blitz, what do you want to talk about?
So my take is that the issues of North America, mainly being ping, solo queue, population of server, and not being able to cross-region scrims raised during shows like The Dive and Jack's interview, should not be taken, as they will only weaken the region and prevent improvement.
Oh, so it sounds like you think that accepting these as excuses are setting us up for failure. Blitz.
Sorry, say that again.
I was just saying, it sounds like you're saying accepting these as excuses is only setting us up for failure.
Absolutely, yeah. You hit the nail on the head there.
Okay. Well, go ahead, Blitz, if you wanted to expand on that.
Sorry, yeah, I was just going to expand a little bit. So, I mean, the main two kind of parts around this is, A, these aren't really areas that are factors that North America can fix. So things like population of server, Riot's always trying to increase the player base. I mean, the ping is more of an infrastructure issue of North America as a whole. Cross-region scrim is more of a geographical thing, so it's not really things that can be changed but when you actually get into the individual issues themselves, so things like ping, that's not really something that affects North America at Worlds, in my opinion. It wasn't an issue around mechanics, which is what ping really causes problems for. It was more of a macro and a team play issue. So I don't feel like ping was a fault for North America at Worlds. And regarding something like player count, when you take, say, Europe, which has a 2 million player base, and North America has a 1 million player base, I could probably put together, say, maybe 20 world-class players in Europe. And then if I were to like half that for North America, I don't know if I could find, say, 10 world-class players. I could probably find the odd few, like Tactical, maybe Wild Turtle, maybe Johnson. But it just feels like out of 1 million players, you should be able to find at least 10 players. So I don't feel like that's necessarily a strong enough reason. So for me, really, it just feels like these aren't really strong enough reasons, and that we should be looking at the areas that I think Mark raised quite excellently, mainly around how can we improve just the team play between the teams, and how can we improve mentality and more of the macro side.
Well, you say we can't fix the player base thing, but we just absorbed an entire region. So I feel like that's an example of us.
That's a fair point.
We just need to delete their servers now too, so they have to play on NA solo queue, so that way we can fix our challengers.
Yes.
I have a couple of friends that actually, and one of the players on my team actually, when he played on the North American League, the server in 2014, actually was challenger over there on 250 ping. So it's very doable.
I don't know if that's a good sign for it. I don't know if that makes me feel better about North American solo queue.
One thing, if I can jump on this one first, is I think let's be really careful here. Acknowledging issues doesn't mean that we're not working on solutions.
Sure.
And I say we in the North American brethren sense now that I am now a part of.
Welcome.
And I think like acknowledging issues, like they can be used as excuses, sure, but they shouldn't be used as excuses. They are just the issues, and you have to acknowledge them before you can maybe move on to solutions. And if you don't acknowledge the issues, then your solutions are always going to be janky because you're not actually going to be attacking the root cause of the problem. And what I mean by that is, if you don't say solo queue ping is high, then you're never going to try and organize in-houses on a tournament realm that has lower ping, right? Which would be beneficial to pro players. I don't think anyone debates that because you're just ignoring issues, right? What I will say on the player base issue as well is that never undervalue the amount that a small group of highly skilled individuals will push each other. And what I mean by that is, like, if you have 6 really good players that are playing all at the same time, they will create a 7th, but it's a force multiplier. If all of a sudden you have 1,000 really good players playing at the same time, they are going to multiply much quicker, because what you're going to get is you're going to get quicker queue pops with higher quality of game, and people are going to be punishing you for mistakes more, and therefore you're constantly agitating each other, and good breeds good. Like, make no excuse about that. When in League of Legends, which is a different game to everything else, there's not really drills and stuff to do. You can't get better by punching a bag 100 times. You have to punch someone else, and like they can hit you back. That's how League of Legends people practice. So the quality of your practice does impact how good you are. And that's why I don't really get like they should have at least half the amount of good players, because like I do believe there is a force multiplier behind that. In saying that, I do compare NA in League of Legends a lot to Australia in traditional sports because geographically isolated, blah, 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 blah. And they have been able to overcome it in the past. Like the Australian cricket team, for example, is a world-class cricket team. But what it actually takes is a lot of time and bringing in good infrastructure. And I think that this was the issue that North America first created and now has since rectified and is starting to see a slow uptick in results. Is when the initial imports came over, my understanding is they came over with not many coaches. However, I do think that the coaching staff in North America, to my understanding and to the best of my knowledge, is starting to get better and is starting to improve. And as long as they keep improving the coaching infrastructure, things will get better. Because the example I can point to is when the LPL brought over all their players, they didn't bring coaches and they had an initial upswing and then they sucked. And now the LPL coaches are some of the best coaches in the world. You know, they learned from the Korean coaches. They've taught people how to speak Mandarin and things like that. And now the LPL is a truly spectacular region to watch, and they have a great depth of talent. So I think that the infrastructure that is being brought into North America will improve the scene. And whilst those are reasons the scene has suffered, they shouldn't be treated as excuses, but as reasons.
Is it true that Australian cricket was caught cheating?
Yeah, we used sandpaper on a cricket ball against the...
Okay, so that's what we need to do then. It sounds like you're
We
saying...
need to sandpaper other people's mouses.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, I think Spawn hit a lot of the points pretty well, especially just like acknowledging an issue doesn't mean excuses. I think it's a fine line, but you know, like if I was 4 feet tall and I wanted to play in the NBA, like at some point I should probably acknowledge I'm 4 feet tall. You know, like if I'm just like, why can't I post these guys up? I want to back them down in the paint. I want to dunk, and it's like, well, there is something different. You know,
I don't know what
between
most
me
of those things
and
meant.
LeBron James, you know, like they're acknowledging these differences doesn't mean excusing them and not finding solutions like Swan's saying. So like I do think you have to sometimes look at these things, and the population point is less about like you're saying, oh, you should be able to five or 10 good players. And I agree. Travis and I actually last night before he posted that thing on his YouTube channel, which was using my argument from a year ago about population size. He was like, can we say this is the number one issue? And I said, no, because when you look at like the talent on the rosters we sent to Worlds, they should have enough talent on them. Like I don't think Team Liquid is lacking. You know, Tactical is a great find. He's been incredible. You know, he's now performed at Worlds, and we can say, yeah, he's up to it. But the problem you have with this core group of guys, like Spawn is saying, is getting all of them on the same team doesn't just happen because there's people competing, and you're tearing this super team apart. You know, G2 finally coming together. It took years to build that team. Like Wonder was on there for a long time with Perks before Caps showed up and like Mickey showed up, and you know Yankos. I forget when Yankos showed up. But
He was on there for a while, I think. But
yeah, but the order that they all got there took some time, and so like building one of these super teams, one, if you don't have enough players, isn't going to happen. Two, even if you build it and then there's no good players left on other teams, who are you really challenging? And so like the player population size issue is not really about the top teams, like Spawn was kind of saying. It's more about like having disgusting talent or like a great diamond in the rough that's currently playing on a lower tier team, which I think a lot.
Well, and I mean, Peter has said this before in interviews after losses. Is like
Peter's double lip, by the way, guys. Travis can call him Peter because they're close like that.
The joke that keeps on giving.
I call him Elion. Anyway, so the thing that he's talked about frequently is like it's really difficult when you are a top team and it feels like there's not great competition to compete with, right? What we really want are like 3 really great top teams, and we usually only have like 1 or 2, right? Whereas people like LGD could have made it out, right? They would have had 4 really great teams in all of Worlds, right? Whereas like it does feel like whenever we send a 3rd team, it's always kind of like, I mean, I guess this year we sent TL and like that looked pretty good, but frequently we're sending like a clutch or whatever. So. And
let's be realistic, FPX and IG underneath the next couple of teams of the LPL also probably would have been near competitive enough to get out of the group stage, right? So like I agree with what you're saying here, Travis, and like this is where it does impact solo queue as well, because if there's only like 3 80 carries on the server, right? As you kind of just mentioned before, Mr. Caller, who I've forgotten your name of already because I'm in a different Discord reading something. Blitz, because what happens is, like, let's say Tactical, Johnson, and Double Lift all queue up at the same time. Well, one of them is playing against a guy that doesn't have opposable thumbs now, and is like, they're just destroying him.
I'm not sure if the drop off is
queue.
that big, but yeah.
Like, I mean, like, we call them asteroids in those, right? You hit an asteroid and you want to dodge. So like, but then put the supports in there, right? So because, like, obviously it's a duo lane, so all of a sudden you get a stacked team on one team that has a great AD carry and support playing against maybe just a great AD carry and a mid tier support. So then your practice quality is just seriously depreciating, and that's why, like, boot camping in Korea and stuff like that is so needed.
And queue times and all those things add up. And so, like, I think, you know, the population size issue basically just comes down to, as you say, you know, like, okay, we find a tactical, they find two, and now there's a tactical on two of their teams, and, you know, just do that for every position and every player that you think is good in NA, and for China to do that times 10, and you start seeing where why the player based thing does matter. Now, to your point that we haven't touched on at all is kind of the second part, which is the in-game reasons, which I think this is going to be my hipster cap moment, because Travis was necroing all these old videos last night, and, like, how many times we've talked about this, because, like, to be honest, Travis and I are very tired of talking about why NA is bad. We've been doing it our whole careers.
Don't wish it away, mate. I wished away the OPL and it actually came true. Keep right of that bandwagon.
I love it. I love being terrible and being able to talk about it. But I do mean, like, he was watching one of the videos and, like, going over the points I was making in that video from, I think it was 2017, you said?
Yeah, 2017 Yahoo Esports after MSI.
It's the same conversation. Like, it's literally point for point some of the things I'm talking about here. And that's why it can get a little exhausting to get into, like, the issues that the non-controllable issues, like you've identified, Caller, which is a great point. These are things you don't really have control over. You can try and push for some changes, like, can we shard the North American high elo system so it puts the game on a server on the West Coast when the majority of the players are on the West Coast, to try and help them. It's a little weird because then you're playing on multiple pings, but I still think that would probably be preferred by pro players. I'm not sure. But, like, outside of these, like, systems that Riot's fixing, which, let's be honest, they might not. Yeah, I agree. You have to look at the things under your control and fix those. And that's where I think some of these kinds of other issues. I almost did one of those things, Travis, where I pulled a VOD to have you pull up, and I just didn't get around to it.
I would have loved that. Would have been good content for my channel in a time.
Yeah,
we'll do
it. We'll do it another time. We'll do it another time. But I had this video I was working on to do at Riot for the analyst desk about why Licorice, for a period of time, Licorice had a 22 CSD top lane in NA through, like, 10 games. He was going to set the all-time record for it. And I was like, what is he doing different than the other top laners to get this lead? And so there's a number of things he does that I think also exemplify problems in North America. And I always harp on top lane the most because I feel like it's the most neglected, but it does apply to all the others. When people talk about, like, that killer mindset thing I was hitting on, that one play was like a split-second decision thing, but I think it comes into draft and laning and how you approach team fighting and stuff and trying to wipe them and, like, these kinds of things people talk about. I think Dwemby was mentioning this in one of his things. Like, Licorice will take aggressive counterpick. This is how Licorice builds a 22 CSD lead, and I had VODs and all these things pulled for Riot that I was going to send to Travis. I got too lazy to. First off, he takes counterpicks, real counterpicks, not soft counterpicks, hard counterpicks. You want to pick a range matchup, he'll pick Jason he'd play Wukong. He's one of the first people to actually play Wukong in a range matchups in top lane and try and kill people. He actually builds aggressively too. I watched Jace's in NA build D-Shield into Volibear and take about 300 damage throughout the entire laning phase and not trade aggressively. I watch Jace's lose lane priority versus GPs because they're too afraid to contest barrels in the wave correctly, and so you just trade abilities and as opposed to auto trading. Like, people, one, don't pick aggressive counter picks, then they don't trade aggressively to actually try and win the lane. And Licorice does, and sometimes he got solo killed. People remember that game versus Someday where he got solo killed. He died because he was playing aggressively and actually taking trades. You can't get big leads if you're not willing to take risks and actually try and push those open. So Licorice would take really aggressive trades, sometimes die for it, sometimes get solo killed. People remember the Rune solo kills as an example. Rune's someone who's willing to play aggressive as well. And they're willing to play aggressive. They're willing to take these trades, and either you get the solo kill or you get them low, and then you have wave control. And ganking for a low health enemy, or ganking against a low health enemy, makes it exponentially easier to get the kill. You don't have to kill someone from full health. You have to kill them from half health. And it's easier to execute ganks. And so ganks to Licorice's lane are actually extremely effective because people are low health. But this is when they were all stomping. I killed this video because then C9 went on a terrible dip and it didn't really match the narrative, and it felt weird to analyze what they were doing right when they were losing from previously. But all these points I think still stand. They actually gank his lane and it's super effective. He knows the windows to call people. So like when they have the TF at 6, he'll actually start playing more aggressive, like in the Wukong matchup, which also gets stronger at 6 in a lot of these situations. And they would actually, because people were low or set up in situations, he would be able to kill them, deny waves through this way. And then if they drop the turret, he would actually freeze and do correct minion wave manipulation. And like, that's how he built a 22 CSD lead. And the amount of top laners in NA who will actually like do those steps consistently in a game is like close to zero. It's like Broken Blade is probably the only other one. Someday, as much as I love him in terms of skill and stuff, for whatever reason, and I've heard some different things, different reasons from some people who've been on 100 Thieves at different points in time. They've talked about, because that's like the big question mark for me around Someday. Like, why doesn't he do this consistently? Either way, he doesn't do it consistently. He sometimes plays the tanks and kind of, it feels like, just plays what his team wants him to play. But I'll make this video another time. Sorry, final thing. I'll make this video another time for you, Travis, and you can post it on your YouTube channel. But like, apply that to all the lanes and all the positions. Like, how many players are really playing that way compared to like Licorice and C9 when they were really good?
I mean, that was one of Jizuke's frustrations. Was he just felt like everybody just in the mid lane would just play safe, not try to do anything, not take any trades, and just wait for a jungler to show up.
Yeah. How many played set like BDD did against Bjergsen Zillion? Like, no one played it that way.
That was my point. Like, so I agree with everything Mark said, apart from the counter pick thing. Because what you should actually do when you're training players is that you should take the mean of the matchup and then challenge your individual player to beat that. So, and what I mean by that is, like, I don't want a top laner that just gets counter picked and tries to go 20 CS up. I want a top laner that gets counter picked and tries to remain even CS. Like, I don't want them to overplay the lane to where they're dying, but say it is a negative 20 CS matchup. They should be applauded for playing the matchup in such a way where when they're negative 15 or negative 10 or they don't lose the 2 turret plates or whatever, like, they're doing their jobs. And I feel like that's an area of League of Legends that is completely neglected when it comes to like how people talk about the game. Like, when Duncan Robinson shoots 3-pointers, people just talk about like, wow, this guy's a great 3-point shooter. They don't necessarily say, yeah, but off the dribble he sucks, right? And if you got a weak side top laner that's playing tanks, like, there are levels to which you can do this shit. And I feel like you have to be able to challenge every single person. I hate the argument that he's the weak side top laner, so it was fine that he lost his turret to Rift Herald. Because it's like, no, do your job better. Go ward the Rift Herald. Go contest the Rift Herald 2v3. Like, do things to actually slow the pace down and do your job better than what you're actually doing your job, which is like, just sit on the island and get blasted. Because I hear that argument all the time, and I just think it's such a poorly constructed argument.
I totally agree. Watch Rascal's game. It was from week 2. He was on Volibear. He just like took over the game on Volibear, and like, they did play to him a little bit, but like, he's supposed to be the weak side for that team, which is a ruler-led team in a lot of ways, and he is just not fucking doing nothing. Like, he's protecting, he's going getting the scuttle crap, he's like getting vision down, he's being annoying whenever he has lane priority. And I totally agree, like, all those points that we just made, it is hard to do these things, you know, like you have to be smart about it too. You can't just like brain off AFK trade, have no health, and it's like, oh, their jungler came first because I wasn't paying attention to like my jungler's pathing, you know. Like, you do have to be smart about these things. But I feel like because some people might struggle with that part, they just say fuck it to all of it and don't, and instead of learning to do these things, it's easier and you'll win more in the short term by saying, okay, don't trade as aggressively. And I've been a part of that problem for sure. Like, when I was coaching back in 2014, I know myself and other coaches had that mindset sometimes of like, okay, did you really need to trade here? And you kind of stunt them long term probably by having that mindset. And I definitely can acknowledge now that like, so that was probably some bad coaching.
Are the reason we're losing at Worlds, Mark.
If I was that influential, then like, holy shit, I'm awesome that I've ruined our entire region on my own. I don't think I was that influential, but I know that some coaches still have that problem because I talked to some players about what their VOD sessions are like, and it's a lot of nitpicking mistakes. You remember that leaked TSM spreadsheet from, I think it was a year or 2 ago, that was like, every time someone messed up, that like, here you go. And you know, I do think that these problems are relatively entrenched in North America, and it leads to this in laning, in team fighting, in side laning, in drafting, about not wanting over prioritizing not making mistakes over other things.
Caller,
Yeah,
I know these guys have gone on these big rants, but is there to bring it back to you a little bit before we say goodbye? What do you think of any of this stuff?
Oh yeah, I didn't want to take up too much time, as I know you've got some other great callers coming along.
They're
So
not that
I
great.
just wanted to say I really enjoyed Mark's points. I think it was very eloquent, kind of raising about the mentality issues and a lot of the individual kind of issues that can be improved. And I do believe, in the same way that you do, Travis, that North America can be, a great region. We've seen flashes of it before, and I do think that there is the potential in the talent that can be grown. Regarding some of the Spawn's points, I just made a few notes, definitely like a small group of players who are very talented and work well together can make all the difference. I think back to 2015 with Flash Wolves and AHQ, just that the small group can make all the difference in a small region. And I kind of just thinking more about the fact that, yes, it should be almost as a little kind of certification kind of at the beginning, just to say, look, these are some of the issues that we're aware of. We can't fix them like ping and, cross-region play. We're just acknowledging them. But let's now, I think it's really useful for the fans to think, okay, what are we really going to improve on? How can I have faith in North America that we can improve? What can we actually see you guys change? Well, these are the things we're going to do. We're going to make sure that we're working on some of the mentality. We're going to actually play weak side better. Just some of those things give that greater hope to the North Americans to really believe, we can do this.
Cheerio. Yeah, no, I actually, Blitz, I really like what you're saying. I don't think that we have had a moment where a team owner or a couple team owners or coaching staff or anything has come out and said, hello, I am team. I think that these are the issues that are holding us back. It seems like you all do too. We are going to try to fix these ones because we think they are fixable, and here is our plan forward. At the very least, I think that would be really helpful in instilling some hope and confidence in the region. And even if that team goes forward and just sucks, maybe they'd get memed on a little bit, but at least there'd be an understanding of oh, okay, they have this clear philosophy behind the way they are approaching stuff next year.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
I think what we really need is another Jack tweet saying enough is enough. I feel like I see these every year, but not by him specifically. I just mean a team owner or two will tweet I've had it up to here with NA sucking. Let's fix this shit.
and it's okay, cool. Now what are you going to do about it? Is what you're saying.
Yeah.
You're calling out Jack right now. Is what
I was just saying. Obviously, C9 is the best org, arguably in NA. So this sounds funny, but I'm just saying All
right, what is that shirt that you're wearing right now, Mark?
Yeah. Let me tell you, whoever is in charge of sending merch out absolutely bombards me with C9 merch, and it works.
Blitz, thank you so much for the call. Anything you want to shout out before we take a quick break?
Yeah, shout out to Alienware and Draftbuff for fantastically supporting the show. I really appreciate the great conversation that you guys had and the wonderful thoughts as well. Shout out to Iceman who gifted me sub. It was very generous of him. And shout out to Twitch chat. I know they always get memed on, but I really do enjoy all the little silly jokes that they make. Makes me smile.
Don't encourage them. Thank you so much for the call.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break right now. Oh, no, Twitch chat is insufferable. Callers don't ever validate this mob of people, all right? Anyway. Quick break to talk about Alienware, our sponsor. Right now, look, I've said this a little bit, and I think some of you have missed the memo, but you can go get free stuff in League of Legends. Oh, your Spawn is using an Alienware monitor right now. That's already saying. And an Alienware PC. Do they sponsor anything that you work with? Spawn?
They sponsor Order.
Oh, I had no idea. That's actually really cool. Shout out to Alienware.
You want me to keep going? You just keep talking. I'll keep pulling products out.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. This is fantastic. We're going to have Spawn on again in the future. Right now, Spawn is showing you the M15, or is it the M17?
This is 17. Big boy.
The M17 notebook. Very beautiful. You might notice how thin and light it is. Really fantastic. That screen is fantastic. I don't know if that is the high refresh
300 hertz.
Oh yeah, there it is. That's the high refresh rate screen. Okay. It needs to be charged, and we'll figure that out next time before the show. But thank you so much to Alienware for sponsoring Order. That worked out very, very, very well. But let's also tell all of you guys about the fact that right now you can go to alienware.com/Travis every day. So there's only a couple more days left of this, but throughout groups and just for a little bit afterwards, we've been doing a chance to win game where you can win mystery skins and hex tech chests and ward skins and all sorts of stuff. There's a banner at the very top. So literally all you need to do in your browser right now, and if everybody could do this, it'd be very helpful for me, because then they'll be like, oh my God, Travis, people actually watch him. Alienware.com/Travis, click the banner at the top where it says play every day for a chance to win. And go get a chance to win. And there's all sorts of people have been messaging me some of the stuff that they've been winning, or they've been tweeting me about it, or putting it in the Discord. And people have got some pretty cool stuff from that. I think somebody got a legendary skin. There's all sorts of interesting stuff. So go do that, and then maybe if you're watching live right now in Twitch chat, tell us what you get, because and you can play every day. So even if you don't get what you're looking for today, which they have a variety of stuff, including Alienware Arena points. But maybe if Alienware Arena points are not the highest thing on your list of hopes, you'd like a skin, you can keep playing for the next couple days as well. Oh, somebody said they got a Coven Morgana from a mystery skin. So there's all sorts of stuff over there. So Alienware.com/Travis, that's our cool little world celebration that we're giving, that we're running right now. And so maybe you can win more than TSM did at Worlds. Thanks so much to Alienware for their sponsorship of the show. Hello, Mark. What are you deeply entrenched in?
I was just reading Discord message to try and find if there's more people to pull. I gotta say, Spawn, are you free every week to hop on for 5 minutes and do some more Alienware plugs?
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Yeah, no, I enjoy. I love Alienware products. Even before I worked with Alienware, I had an Alienware monitor and Alienware laptop. All throughout uni, like when I was failing my subjects to play League of Legends, it was all on an Alienware laptop.
Did you buy?
So you too could fail your
books
subjects
this semester? Nope.
Yeah, no, I did.
Okay, I would always,
Mark
online.
I said the same thing when we had Alienware come in. He was talking a lot about the fact that he used their products for a very long time before. So
yeah, Team Liquid had a lot of their stuff when I was under them.
Mm-hmm.
So either way, thank you so much to Alienware. This ad has continued on, but we're ready for our next call. We're going to be grabbing them. Balls Deep just sent a prime. Thank you so much to Balls Deep. The E's have been replaced with 3s, so fantastic. Love to see that right after a sponsor plug. Let's see. Berlando Jones, thank you. Game or GF, thank you. OPTSM fan, thank you for gifting the sub. And we got our next caller here, Sakowitz. Sakowitz, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Dallas.
From Dallas?
Yeah, I'm pretty disappointed that, North America, for LCS, the, what's it called? Was it spring, right? Spring.
Yes. And Mark claims that I can't ever. Everyone's always quiet, but maybe you can put your microphone a little bit closer because I'm having a hard time. But
all right, this one's
quiet. Is that better?
Yeah, that's better.
Oh yes, moved it 2 inches closer.
Thank you. Well, yeah, I'm sorry that spring finals couldn't be there. Hopefully, we'll have some event as soon as all of this is over. But what do you want to talk about on the show?
So I'm here to discuss Odoamne's tweet. Fairly controversial at the time. I want to start by saying he did apologize in part for what he said.
Well, explain what the tweet is.
Yeah, give some context around this.
Okay, so Odoamne, it was I think it was TSM's 5th game, and they had just lost, and they were giggling after the loss. They were coping with it, and Odoamne tweeted, "Bro, I'll quote it, but bro, where the fuck is your competitive drive if you are giggling after 0-5? What the fuck?" And there was another thing he tweeted where it was like he'd be fuming, and then I saw it without any context, so I was, upset at him, and then I thought, oh, is this just me? No, and then Freak gets mad, and then a bunch of people get mad at him, and then Dash gets mad, and then everyone's kind of attacking Odoamne. He did apologize because he talks about him dealing with it differently, but that doesn't excuse that, coping mechanisms are really far and wide, and people need to understand that, players cope with things differently because of, I don't know, mental health issue. So I want to talk about why that take is specifically shit. Because I don't mean to be that aggressive. It's just, okay. Yeah, no, Odoamne is a great. I'm sure he's a great guy. It's just,
But you're
that
saying you
must-
disagree with his take, to be clear.
Oh yeah, this take is awful. uh, so TSM was already, out of groups the moment they were, I'm pretty sure it was when they went 0-4.
Yeah.
There wasn't even a
They had no
right?
statistical chance to do it when they or make it out after they went 0-4.
So at that point, there's already, okay, they're just playing for pride now, so any loss from here on can't really hurt, more than it already did in terms, because especially when you consider all the players, they wanted to get out of groups. That was their goal. 2, coping mechanisms can vary. I already kind of said that, but even still, humor is a great way of lightening a mood, so it takes out on stressful situations. So you can't really attack someone's coping mechanisms, especially when you know that Doublelift and Bjergsen and Biofrost are extremely frustrated with, what was this? Bjergsen's 7th or 8th time, right? Not getting out of groups, I'm pretty sure. And then,
yeah,
it's a lot. So they're already frustrated, and so questioning their competitive drive is already a no-no. And then Speak and BB, who are on the world stage for the first time, these, incredibly young talents, they probably have more drive to succeed than, almost anyone at Worlds, because they want to prove themselves. And so questioning competitive drive, in a sense, is almost laughable.
Well, all right. So a couple things. Like, he already apologized and kind of, like you said, admitted some of these things. So I don't think we need to go quite so hard. I mean, people sometimes just see that and they self-insert the same. Like, you're talking about some of these psychological terms like coping mechanisms and stuff. And like, I think the idea of you picture yourself in that situation, and you go, if I was there, I would be like this. And I agree that people are different, and the way you react to these situations is different. But like, I don't really fault Odoamne that hard. I mean,
no. He did specifically say that, like, he was he handled those issues differently, but he never really stated that. He never really apologized for the specific part on attacking that coping mechanism.
Yeah,
he just said that he handled it differently.
Yeah. So, anyways, either way, I think like he got clapped back pretty hard on already. And I think it was some of that was equally as over the top. I was totally like out of it. I didn't see this at all until like later on in the day.
I think I pointed out to you when I said Freak is going off on people or whatever.
Yeah. I think I didn't even notice it. But I think I don't think TSM didn't. I think TSM cared after the 4th game. Someone linked a screenshot of how they looked after that, and it was pretty angry. This is the same thing that happened with like the Ninja tweet and like Azael's whole "I'm a literal world champion." Like, people can react differently and stuff. I think it's one of those things that I actually don't have too strong an opinion on.
Okay. The only thing I have a strong opinion on, so like I'm going to jump in here and I'll fly my flag, and then everyone in chat will hate me forever, and I'll never get invited back on this show. But
Let's do it.
If you do not want every single pro player in the world to withdraw into a bubble where they don't give their own opinion on anything, the audience's opinion has to become measured at some point. Like, you can't just clap back this hard every single time a pro player puts a bad take out there. Like, sure, the take was like a little bit on edge and maybe a little bit in distaste, but the amount of clapback that I saw from North American fans, like including like, and not exclusive to racism, death threats, like everything else, like people are just going to stop tweeting at you, dude. Like, they're going to become traditional sports stars. Like, how often does Neymar actually get added in a tweet and respond? Like, it doesn't happen. Whereas esports players do that because they care about their fans. And the more often that people just clap back incredibly hard and incredibly irrational, like they will just withdraw. They'll give their phone to social media managers. Social media managers will handle all their shit, and they're not going to do it anymore.
There are already some teams or players that do that.
Yeah, correct. So like, was his tweet maybe a little out of line? Like, sure. Did TSM have any issue with it? I guarantee no. I guarantee if Doublelift looked at that, he would be like, I made worlds, this guy didn't. Like, I got my own shit to fix before I fix like what my perceived perception around my response is. And like, I like a world where people can give their opinion. People can say like, you know what? I think you're wrong. Like, this is like, I like when people just write, this is a bad take. I hate when people are like, fucking justify your stance. And like,
I like the best time to delete this was
Yeah,
no.
correct.
What a bad take.
Yeah, and so I just think like, you know, and maybe I'm from a much smaller region where like I could name like our top 1,000 fans probably off their like Twitch chat and like off their engagement with me on social media, right? So OCE is a much more intimate situation, but I just think like y'all are scaring away the players. Like fans like this are just scaring away the players from the platform that matters the most, which is social media, in my opinion.
I don't know.
So
It
one
felt a little-
counterpoint.
It felt a little disrespectful.
So one counterpoint to that though, Spawn. So first off, callers. There's always a lot of nuance in this stuff. It is like a scale, or I said to callers. I mean viewers. It's a scale, so it's not like one or the other.
About to get booted off the show, Spawn.
But I do. Here's the only thing I worry about Spawn is whenever he does tweet something like that, all those people like the same type of person who is going and sending him like really shitty messages will look at what he is saying there and use it as validation for making attacks on the TSM players, right? And that is my one concern is like I do think pro players need to be like I think it's fine for the community to be more understanding when somebody has like a really bad take and is like, okay, this is like a young pro player who probably does not have as much thought behind every single tweet as they probably should. I just always worry also about whenever something like that happens, like the amount of people that will use it to justify like you don't even care about the game when like I know all those TSM players do, right?
Absolutely. And that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying just in particular to the Odoamne tweet. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I think people that are jumping really hard on the TSM hate bandwagon also fall into the category of people that I'm talking about, which is like, should Odoamne have been told to like remove the tweet? Like, absolutely. No. Is it okay for you to like, no, hang on a second. Like, I'm saying by media manager or someone within the organization that he works for, if they think this is a bad representation of his personal brand or the team's, can he be told to remove that? Absolutely. Can someone like Freet say like the best time to delete this tweet was like now, before you like sent it, the second best time is now, or whatever the heck the meme is, right? I'm an old man. But I do think that like the vitriolic reaction to all parts of social media is scaring away pro players. How do I know that? Because I manage 40 pro players. And they're all shit scared to go on their phone. I
mean, the easiest thing is to actually, I guess a lot of people who watch the show or follow League might not remember this, but from 2011, 2010 even, 2010 to like 2014, I'd say, maybe even 2015, pro players did AMAs on the League of Legends subreddit all the time. Like, I feel like every 6 months, Doublelift had an AMA. Other players did it a ton too. I don't know how many of them are still there or competing, but you can go find all these. I don't remember the last time a pro player did an AMA. Like, I think Ole did maybe after he left at the North America region or whatever, but like active competing players have withdrawn almost entirely from a subreddit that they all used to mostly post on. And I think that's unfortunate. Like it has, they've erected a wall that they need to deal with this. And I know a bunch of people are going to come in and be like, hey, that's the way it's got to be. That's how it is in traditional sports. You should just never look at Reddit or whatever. But like that type of thing just assumes that we have to be this way, that like the community has to be this hostile. And as we've talked about a lot on the show, I don't think that is necessarily the way things have to be.
Yeah,
and that's what I'm trying to say.
I agree with Spawn's point a lot. You know, like if someone has a bad take, you can tell them it's a bad take. You can meme it and stuff. But responding just as angrily to like whatever anger they might be causing is definitely not great. I think memes are funny. You know, like I remember the conversation we had around when Forgiven like basically quit on Shulk. You know, like he got so much shit for that take. And like, you know, it's like you kind of have to split the two. Like memeing that take is something like, how can you not? You know, especially after Shulk almost made Worlds. Like it's hilarious. People like going after his entire character, probably not great. Discussing his career in a larger context and his history, probably in the middle ground, and it makes sense. You know, like there are these different responses that people have to this stuff that I think you don't want to cut out all conversation and say, you know, you can only joke, you can't have a serious discussion about it. It's just like that third one of like, all right, now you're just attacking him.
I mean, the
versus
great
that,
example of this is this video that I will give Mark full credit for coming up with the idea on, which was the one that we released this week that was memeing on all the takes that Reddit had about him being a terrible analyst for predicting TSM 06 and all this stuff. A lot of the feedback, mostly I think that video was well received, but a lot of the people that I knew didn't like that video. Have you seen this, Spawn? I'm guessing you haven't. It looks like you're looking.
No, I haven't.
Just go to my Twitter. I posted it yesterday. It's only like 2 minutes. And it's a callback to an old Reddit video about Reddit knows balance or whatever. It's on YouTube as well for anybody listening to the show later on. But a lot of the criticism of that video, the people who felt like I shouldn't do that video, were like, yeah, but LS has gotten these things wrong before, and also other analysts disagreed with the TSM 06 take, so like, how dare you suggest that Reddit was wrong to suggest he was wrong? That video, if Reddit had just said, oh, I disagree with LS's take, or I think he's probably going to be wrong about this one, or honestly, it seems like it's not very likely, I could not have made that video. The reason I was able to make that video, and the reason it was so funny, was because you have people in there that are like, this guy is not a real analyst. No real analyst would ever say this. Analysts, there was a line in there, it's like, there's no such thing as a analyst that works for a broadcast. All the real analysts work for teams. Like, that is the thing, is like, that video is not possible. It is not funny in a world where everyone has a measured response to what LS is saying. But when the top comments are like, what an idiot, like, that's where that video becomes possible and funny, because people start making all these weird personal attacks on him.
The funniest one was the one that did like the math on the probabilities. Like, even if TSM is disadvantaged 90-10 in every matchup they go into, like, here's the math behind it. I actually love that one being. People thought that was a bad one, because I actually think that's a good point. Like, about how bad TSM would have to be to go 0-6, and then they went 0-6. So like, that one was great to include just to show like the math. But like, yeah, I don't know. That was such a fun thing to see.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm saying to the caller, that's a great video, by the way, Travis. I guess what I'm saying to the caller, in this case, I think Odo's take also wasn't a great take. But I think that I'm more forgiving on pro players having a bad take every now and again and, getting told politely, hey, this is a bad take, than having mass pro players withdraw off social media in the way that it's currently happening. Because I think that's really bad for fans in general.
Yeah, I guess I was particularly upset at like that whole TSM hate culture that you mentioned specifically, because Odoamne's take, it was kind of enabled that. I don't want to say it enabled. I'm not sure, because I'm sure he doesn't want people to hate on those players, because he's a pro player himself, and I'm sure he feels for them losing, but unintentionally, I think he did kind of enable some people to,
right,
I guess, reaffirm TSM garbage, get everyone off the team, restart.
And it's one of those things where, like, I think the enabling that goes on is something that is real. I've probably been a cause of some enabling myself at times, because I'm often trying to hashtag poo gang, right? But like, I talked about that one, like, like, to me that was supposed to be a dumb joke about his name, but people actually took the KDA I posted and were using that to argue that he's a bad player or whatever, and like, that can happen. The enabling thing does happen, but I don't think it's always the best to conflate the people who are using your thing against its intention with what its intention was. So like, I don't think like, Odo was being critical of the players there, but I don't think he was necessarily the same person as the guy who's like, fuck TSM, Doublelift needs to retire. And those people are their own people in a lot of ways.
He definitely didn't mean it in that way.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, Sakowitz, thank you so much for the call. Is there anything you want to shout out?
So hashtag Alienware, alienware.com/Travis, Draftbuff. Thanks. This show is actually just incredible. It is a huge star for the league community. Shout out to TSM Youngboy. Shout out to, I don't know. All the amateur scene stuff, Challengers Uprising, Focus Esports, all of that.
Thank you so much.
Etc. Thanks.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
And if people do agree that this show is great, they should help finish the hype train that's going on right now in the chat. We've only got 2 minutes left. Sorry, go ahead, Spawn.
What'd you say, Spawn?
I think what he was trying to say is this iteration of the show is great. I don't know whether he was saying Hotline League was great. I think what he was trying to say is Hotline League with Spawn.
I
is
will
great.
say we've had longer and deeper conversation with our callers tonight than usual. Usually
We're not having conversations with the callers. It's just you and Spawn talking to each other.
Spawn, do you want to do a podcast again?
Yeah, I'm waiting for you guys to just be like, oh, I did the latte. I have this latte
Travis
machine.
Out. Let's cut the callers out. I think we'd have a great product.
You know what?
Please don't give the YouTube commenters ideas.
I have a relationship with Alienware as well, Mark. I'm just saying.
Oh no!
Yeah, let's start
Oh, no.
invoicing you.
Oh no! One minute left on the scam train. By the way, you guys did Spawn. You convinced Mark to buy this espresso machine, and so for 4 nights of groups, I had to hear Mark just talk about this constantly. Like, oh, I just had this conversation with Spawn. I'm thinking about getting an espresso machine. We're talking about an espresso machine. Then the next day I was like, oh, I forget if I told you about the espresso machine, but I ended up buying the espresso machine. And then the next night it was, the espresso machine just got here. I have to go make a latte. And he was telling me about it. And, there, a look into the kitchen. Somewhere in there is an espresso machine.
Let's see if I can get it.
Oh, yeah. We can see it a little bit.
Yeah, just...
This is the worst.
Yes. Oh, yeah. There it is. It's a beauty.
Oh, it's a beauty. Yeah.
The scam train has crashed. We talked too much about espresso machines. You want to go grab the next caller?
Yeah.
I'm going to BRB 1 second.
Okay. Hello, Twitch chat. The scam train has officially crashed. Oh, it's off the rails. It's over. Thank you, Boba Cola, for gifting a sub to Azinto Diacor for subbing the Squirrel Knight. Sorry. Casual Gamer King, Loyal White Fox, Black Plutonium. That's about it. We're waiting for Spawn to get back before we take our next caller. But Mark is in the room as he's fixing his stuff.
My focus.
Yeah.
Bluejay's also here.
I know. Well, I'm waiting for Spawn to get here because I don't want to. Oh, Harry Houdini, thank you for the tier 1. People are saying that I should have Spawn on the show more, or we should have Spawn on the show more, and maybe we will if he's going to become a North American resident now. Because normally the show is very LCS focused, and especially during the non-international time. So
yeah, he's busy running a team. Or he was more so. Yeah.
Yeah,
he's pretty damn good too, and he's not afraid to disagree, which is also pretty good.
That's the Worlds chair, and so I really like the idea that they shipped Spawn a Worlds chair all the way to Australia, which must have been like a pain in the ass, just so that he could have it on broadcast. That's actually pretty.
I think he
impressive.
just printed it out. They just gave him a template, printed it, glue it on.
But as much talk as we've had about Spawn being a great guest, he's taken forever to come back. There he is.
He's earned his.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, what is this?
He can finally announce it. Congratulations. TL has now picked up another caster, joining their roster as an analyst. You've muted yourself, so we can't even hear you explain it. But I'm really excited.
I'm just cold. There's nothing else here. I'm just very cold at the moment, Travis. It's winter time in Australia.
While everyone is watching this clip on the Team Liquid subreddit, please feel free to click through and follow my channel so that you don't miss great episodes on Twitch.
I'm looking forward to the Jat Spawn podcast. I realize now that I've been.
Oh yeah, that's what's happening. You're getting cut out.
Yeah.
Anyway,
no, I just have friends that have TL merch, so I get sent it as well. Much like Mark, I just wanted to flex as well on the audience.
Bluejay, where are you calling from?
You know where I'm calling from. Also, hold on. Are we trolling here, or Spawn is like what's going on here? I'm lost.
Bluejay,
happening.
Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Canada. Remember, it's all the same to you. Just a northern frozen.
What do you want to talk about on the show, Bluejay?
My take. Hang on, let me pull up the exact wording. So, with Oceanic players being non-imports for the LCS will improve, but this will not contribute to a better Worlds performance. And I can expand on that a little bit if you want me to.
Yes, please.
So I actually think that it would contribute to a better Worlds performance if Golden Guardians were likely to spend a little bit more, or if there was an import that made sense. But there's a couple of reasons, or a couple things that's wrong with that. One being, I don't know if you necessarily want imports, because imports don't always lead to success. But two, a certain YouTuber taught me once that Golden Guardians spends less than every other team, or something like that. Maybe
That's all I am too now, a
paraphrasing it correct.
YouTuber.
Yeah, you're a YouTuber. YouTuber Travis.
You're not an interviewer for sure. You're not a journalist.
I don't want to be a YouTuber.
You like content creator, but not YouTuber, even though like
I don't
YouTuber
even
is
like
a
content
subsection
creator.
of
There's just not a
content
great word for me.
creator. You're a content creator. You just don't want to admit it.
I mean, I agree that term.
After it's done,
I agree that term is accurate. I just don't like it. It's like a really weird term, you know. Like I
have
don't
such a
know.
bad comparison that like in another couple years ago I would have made instantly.
I don't know.
I'm gonna put
Travis
in the
Gafford, the YouTuber. Let's go.
So Bluejay, where we at? Because I'm interested in this question, even though the other two just want to meme you. So you think because Golden Guardians don't spend enough money that it somehow hurts OCE's increase into the league? Like,
so yeah, sort of. Yeah, let me explain a little bit more here. So I think that obviously FBI was freaking awesome, and I think he is probably the best player we've seen come out of the Oceanic region. And I think that if Golden Guardians was able to find an import, they wouldn't be able to spend for that import anyways, because, well, they're all, I think they already spend very little, and they also need to renegotiate, or not renegotiate, but re-sign Huhi, which is now worth a lot more than he was a year ago.
Why do they need to re-sign Huhi?
Well, they don't absolutely need to, but I think Huhi had a pretty damn good split, and if you let go of Huhi, I think that team is worse. Would we agree with that?
I mean, so there are a number of players that are coming up. Does anybody have the big list right now of players that are available
global
for
contract database?
I'm looking at it right now.
I did a YouTube video. People can go back and look, but there are a number of players that are becoming available right now. And if I was Golden Guardians, I would consider spending now. I feel like now's the moment. You've been waiting 3 years. It's time to fucking spend, because they've got, like, if they just add in like one player to that lineup, I think, you know, I don't know where the position would necessarily be, but they've got closer, they've got FBI. He had a good split. I remain a little unconvinced about if he'll be able to do it long term, but.
So I totally agree, by the way, that now is the time to spend, but I just don't really think they will. Maybe they will. I don't know as much as you guys do, obviously, behind the scenes, but nothing that they've done so far shows that they're willing to spend, and I hope that they change that. I think that'd be pretty sweet to see Golden Guardians make a push kind of thing.
All right, so let's. Sorry, Spawn, you go first.
So I was going to say, is FBI considered better than Wild Turtle?
Yes.
Yes.
He's
So it doesn't
considered
have to
best
be
in the league.
Golden Guardian spending,
during playoffs.
right? So it doesn't have to be Golden Guardian spending. It could be FlyQuest spending to acquire FBI. And would that team be better
FBI's
at
contract
World?
is not. Oh, you're saying to acquire, like through a trade?
Yeah, to acquire, like via trade or via buyout, like Turtle plus money for FBI. Like that's probably an attractive deal if they don't want to spend money, right? Like, you know,
that's true.
If they want to,
I would be so surprised if Golden Guardians gave up FBI. It would just be
but
like,
but I'm just saying, right? Like, let's say that whoever owns FlyQuest is like $2 million plus Turtle, and we'll take FBI out for you on a new contract. Like Golden Guardians' whole motto can change about, we don't need to spend money right now. We can just be a talent farm, right? We can continue to test run the Oceanic players. And then when they have wings to fly, like just like Jack does with a academy talent, you know, they're going to go up the chain. There are teams in the EPL that exist purely at the bottom of tier 1 to breed talent, to sell to upper teams. It's a legitimate business strategy, right? Not everyone has to be in it to win it. Also,
Anero would love that. He's like, I'm just an Australian player scout. Like, he loves developing players and he loves Australia, so this is his dream.
And he loves his money.
Yeah.
And FBI did come from somewhere, Bluejay. He was actually a part of my team. So, you know,
I've got no shade against FBI. I think he's awesome, but
no. But what I was trying to say is, like, there are other people like FBI. So I don't think that this is a golden. Like, what I'm trying to say is,
who do you got?
Nick
What do you got
Smith
for a Spawn? Who can you
doesn't
send?
own OPL.
He's
I
not the
own
only
OPL.
And Arrow's not the only person who can shuffle in these players and get them into NA. That's where I was going to go. Is like, even if you think Golden Guardians isn't going to do anything, you know, to take this from a high tier 2 NA team into the contending for a title level because of spending, there's other teams that can potentially use Oceanic players to level up. There's a number already that have been playing on C9 Academy that Fudge
Yes.
definitely catch people out as
Fudge and
king.
King, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
But there's other players as well, like from like Rays, who I think people thought could be decent. Babip. I mean, there's just a number of players that I'm like, okay, they don't have a league anymore. Just bring them into academy and see how well they do now compared to these other players. I know Visas are tough, and like we already talked about, but if you can, that part aside, on a talent level, there's no reason not to bring these players in. And assuming some portion of them are going to be competing quite high against North American players, our region should just, as a very selfish take, North America should just be better off for this.
Under global league rules, are you allowed to talk about what players are good and what players NA teams should be picking up and stuff like that?
So I'm able to say what players are good, right? Because like I've said it on the broadcast, I'm a commentator of the league. I can't tell you which players are currently under contract or willing to move to North America or that North American teams are looking for, right? But like,
yeah, but you could say
I made a
who
tweet,
we
right?
should pick up. Yeah.
Yeah, correct. So I made a tweet. It's available on my page where like I thought that 2019 was the best year of League of Legends ever in Oceania, and we had 4 really good teams. So we had the Bombers team that went to MSI. We had the Mammoth team that went to Worlds. We had Order, which was my team, that finished 2nd and 3rd in that split, respectively. 2nd in split 1, 3rd in split 2. And we had the Chiefs that finished, I think, 2nd and 3rd as well. Like they were 3rd in split 1, 2nd in split 2. Of those 20 players, I guess, that is there, 14 of them are now overseas. So by my logic, there are 6 good players left in OPL for people to like go and find, right? And the top half of the league was seriously stacked. So if you have a look at it, FBI and Ryoma were on the Bombers team. They're both in North America right now. 2 of their Korean imports went back to Korea. Balkan went to Turkey, kind of got stuffed over on his contract, is my understanding. So Mimic and Balkan, both very good players. Rogue is still in the scene. He's a good support player. On the Mammoth lineup, everyone but Babip got picked up to go international. Poor Babip. So that was Destiny went to Origin, King went to C9 Academy, Fudge went to C9 Academy, and Triple went to FlyQuest Academy. They're all really great players. Babip is a very good player. Babip is left over. On my lineup, Spooks went to Golden Guardians, Swiffer went to XL. They're both coaching staff. Enero also took my coach, who was Choo Choo's. In fact, there is a common theme amongst the team that Enero pulls from, but I'll let the audience make a calculated decision on that one.
I assume it's your team. I think you don't need to leave it to the audience. I think you just heavily implied what he's doing.
But that's the implication was there. Now you're making me make accusory statement.
Travis can't connect the dots, so he needs people to do it just outright.
I think
Rare 7 was left over on Order, and we took him for another year, and we came 4th and 2nd or whatever. He's a good 80 carry. Ayla was on Chiefs and then Order this year. He won MVP actually this year. So Ayla was the MVP of the OPL. So I assume that means he's a good player. And then you've just got a couple of other random players. I think I went through 4 of the 5. Claire was the last one I didn't talk about. He's been around since North American days, but he played on the North American server, got Challenger as a 14-year-old. Now he's 22 and has 8 years of competitive experience. So yeah, there are still players left over in the OPL that would be immediate improvements of Academy and potentially improvements on bottom tier LCS teams now that they don't take an import slot up. The big controversy was never, can Ryoma play LCS? It's like, why would you import someone that is going to be bottom of LCS in my experience? Now, like some of these players can flip between Academy and LCS without taking up a spot, and potentially in a year, 2, 3, they'll be very good players. Because everyone kind of writes off FBI last year for some reason, because he was only there for half a year. But FBI did come split 2 of last year. And let me tell you, I had the same analysts that are telling me that Ryoma sucks, telling me FBI sucked when he first got there, and now FBI is the best 80 carry in your region. So like there is a chance that some of these players turn it around.
Very good.
Interesting. Very interesting. Can I ask a question? Just because obviously myself, I don't really know a lot about the Oceanic region prior to NA taking all these players. Where would you say Ryoma would have fallen as far as like the top players list in Oceania before coming over to North America? Just to give us maybe not a fair way of measuring this, but at least some way of measuring.
He was top 5. He never won MVP. When he was on the same team as FBI, FBI was considered the carry over him. They're best friends, by the way. For those that don't know, Tommy and Vic get on really well. But he was definitely top 3 mid laners. So Triple who was the Mammoth mid laner, was known as like the scaling teamfight monster. Ryoma was actually known for like his assassin play in Oceania, plays a really mean LeBlanc. And then Swiffer, who was on my team and now is the XL coach, he was like the first ever legendary mid laner. Swiffer's a bit older; he's 27 now. He's the XL Academy coach and apparently doing very good over there.
Well, we're running low on time right now because we've got 2 more callers and a quick break to take as well. But I don't know. I guess Bluejay, your initial take was we'll improve the league but not perform better at Worlds because of the Oceanic players.
Yes, yeah, I definitely think it will improve the league for sure.
Really
And
quickly,
I think Spawn said this: the bottom half of the league is for sure going to improve. I don't think we'll keep any of the so-called washed-up players, so to speak. I won't name anyone, of course, but yeah.
Spawn, really quickly, do you think that we'll do better at Worlds because of the Oceanic players?
Competition breeds competition. You inject 5-10 young, hungry players, I think people will get better.
Very good. Well,
That's
hey,
fair.
Bluejay, anything you want to shout out before we take a quick break?
Yeah, one very other quick question for Spawn. Just have you heard of any players leaving like the Oceanic region to go like boot camp in Korea or any of the other regions?
So we can't this year, obviously, but prior to this year, when COVID sunk in, top 4 teams, all players all asked to have built into their contracts 2 boot camps in Korea. So Order sent all their players, Chief sent all their players, Direwolves, Mammoth Bombers, all sent players to Korea and stuff.
Oh, you guys
That's
seem like
pretty
good
famous
league.
because FBI got top 5 over there when he boot camped with Order.
Sweet.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for having me on the show, guys. And
Yeah.
yeah, Spawn, come back, man. I think you're really good at not being afraid to give your opinion. So yeah,
Thanks, Bluejay.
good show.
Have a
Goodbye,
good
everyone.
Thanks. I like that
Um,
caller.
he's a regular.
one. Yeah, a little too regular.
I will say we're going longer on a lot of these topics than I thought we would, which I enjoy. But I did actually want to talk about quarterfinals at some point, and I think maybe we'll end the show with just like some quick quarters predictions if we can get through these next 2 callers. Travis,
Yeah.
if that sounds.
Yeah, we'll do it quick. But first, I want to shout out Draftbuff. !Draftbuff in the chat. We'll give you a link over to their page. I don't know what they have lined up on it right now. Oh, it's just let's see. It looks like you can do the knockout bracket stuff underneath the Royale. So go over to that link, and if you're watching the VOD, there's a link in the description to go check out their stuff. And this is a completely free service. Somebody, perhaps I have not done the best job of saying that, but completely free. You can download it on your phone. It's just an app, and you can play with friends. You can play in. We usually have some Travis Gafford stuff. I don't know if we have one set up just yet for this, but if not, it'll be up soon. So download it in preparation, where you can either draft teams based off of who you think is going to perform really well. And actually, I really want to brag about this. I did a draft royale where I drafted 5 players. Let me see if I can find it. Yes, I can. So I drafted Bin, Canyon, Jensen, Ruler, and Core JJ, and then Suning was my my team ahead of the second
That's a
week
good
of
draft.
groups, and that got me 4th out of 500 people. So that was, I thought, a killer. I'm really proud of myself for that. And sometimes I will admit, I ask Mark or Kobe or something for a couple pro tips on some of
I'm
these.
surprised you came up with that one on your own.
I did it all on my own. I'm pretty proud. So getting 4th in this that's pretty killer. I mean, I feel pretty great about that. So yeah, I was able to do that with the budget from the first week, and yeah, people were kind of sleeping on Ben, I feel like, after the first week too. So he was a great performer. Canyon, of course, showing crazy up. So either way, 4th out of 500. Come compete against me, the king, on Draftbuff.
How'd your first one go?
We don't talk about that one. That was a warm up. That one was 404 out of 558. So it was just that, but I was Russian. It was really stressful. I should not have drafted Doublelift. Anyway, so we're gonna move on to the next caller. But shout out to Draftbuff for hooking us up with a sponsorship for Worlds and covering stuff, and really appreciate them. They've been great to work with, and they do cool stuff. Oh, and one more shout out too. We have a dedicated Draftbuff chat on the Discord server, on my Discord server, discord.gg/Travis. So if you want to find people to play with, you can go do that there. And also the Draftbuff folks actually hang out in that channel, so you can ask them any questions about their app, give them feedback. If you have any concerns or having some issues with anything, go check them out there. They respond at least I think once a day or so. So thank you so much, Draftbuff. Okay, where are we? We got the next caller here, Tuckinlee. Tuckin, where are you calling from? Hello, Tuck.
Might be that Discord issue sometimes where people can't talk in some channel. Let me try moving him again.
Yeah. See, we're dealing with a technical issue. Tuck, are you here? Hello. Mark, you want to go on the other channel and just make sure you can hear him?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you to Harry Houdini for the sub. Really appreciate it. If anybody else wants to sub with any Prime gamers, that stuff is always appreciated. Tuck, are you here?
Hello.
There we go. We can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Where are you calling from?
Okay, cool. Seattle, Washington.
And you've been on the show before, yeah?
No, first time.
Ooh.
Oh, okay. Well, welcome to the show. What do you want to talk about on the show tonight?
So I think the group, or I guess the quarterfinals draw is pretty terrible. You have Damwon Gaming versus DRX, which we've already seen. We have Suning JDD. We haven't seen that in the playoffs, but we've seen that in the regular season. I just don't like how in the first round you can have the same regions playing each other. And I would rather just have, instead of like how they have it right now where groups teams are on the opposite side of the brackets, I would rather have it be same regions can't be playing each other in the first round, and the same groups teams can't play each other in the first round or something like that. I just don't like seeing the same matchups that we've already seen.
You're talking about, so for those that don't follow the other regions, we have some regions going head to head against, like within the same region, our teams from within the same region going head to head in the quarterfinals. And so we've seen some of these already play out, obviously, in playoffs. And so sort of seeing just a repeat of that is perhaps a little lackluster to our caller. It's interesting that you have this take. I also heard some people say that as well, or just like a little disappointing. It's like, oh, cool, we've got Korea on one side and China on one side, and then just like we've thrown in one EU team on either side. So I don't know. I thought it was interesting because as soon as the groups were drawn, every Riot broadcaster went on Twitter and was like, "This is great! I'm so happy about this. How hype! It's gonna be."
I mean, it's all the EU casters that they got G2 with a good draw. And also probably memeing that like if Fnatic had gotten first, they would have been playing G2. But like, I think when you look at the larger one, I can't imagine that like outside of who you like want G2 to have the LCK, which they apparently do better against than the LPL or something like those kinds of reasons. But like for the actual draw, I'm with the caller. This is disappointing.
I think the other thing is that people look at the whole bracket and think, wow, semis are going to be great. Whereas, like, if you just take it as, like, is the quarterfinals the 4 best matches you could have get out of those 8-4 teams? I'm with the caller and Mark. I think it's really hard to argue that these are the 4 most compelling games to be on broadcast right now. Will it lead to a great semifinals? Yes, because then you're not going to see Korea versus Korea later on into the call. But I don't think that should be the goal of it, right?
Yeah, I mean, the one positive spin that I've heard people say is at least Top and Damwon are on different sides as the 2 tournament favorites, that like we might get them in the finals. And also the spawns point, there's no way that it's the same region final like this. But like the pessimist in me is like, all right, Damwon beats DRX and they play Gen G and that's whatever. And like, you know, JDG beats Suning and Top beats Fnatic, and then it's JDG versus Top, which I've watched in LPL Spring Finals. I watched them in LPL Summer Finals, and now I get to watch them in World's quarterfinals. You know, like, I don't know. I understand that there are some positives to it, but overall, I just want to see more interesting matchups going on between other regions. Because if a region's entirely going to get, like, if 2 of a region's 3 teams are going to get knocked out by their own region, and I understand, I'm basically saying the EU is going to lose these. I'm not saying, I'm just saying like worst case scenario. You know, like EU can very easily win these, and then the bracket draw wasn't that bad. But if G2 and Fnatic lose their series, then you're basically just going to have self-team kills all the way up. And at that point, you could have just taken LPL number 1 seed and LCK number 1 seed and smacked them together.
I think. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, kind of like it's not really a format change, but just almost a deterministic outcome as to how I would want them to be kind of seeded. and how the quarterfinals would play out, I would just have like I would agree. I would think most people would say that Top and Damwon are like the top two teams. They seem like the strongest, and they're also first in the group. So I think they should be on the opposite sides of the bracket. I think Suning and Genji, they both finished first, but they're like, you know, they're equal level as to like, however good they are. So I'd probably just like, separate those two. And then I think JDG should have to go against Genji because they're like the best second place team. I don't want them to play Suning, so I just had them against Genji. What else did I have? I had DRX versus Suning, because I would say that like makes sense. And it's
Are
like,
you saying you want like someone to automatic like to manually determine these, or
I would say kind of rank them almost, yes. But yeah, I don't like the ball draws, because like even in previous groups there have been multiple times where it's like LPL versus LPL, LCK versus LCK. I think you can still also have like reveals where it's like a surprise to people, kind of like instead of
I think having people manually make draws or like matchups will probably never happen. There's just too much bias risk, but I do think you can potentially try to
Yeah, that would be great.
add more rules. Like you can't
LEC's like, okay, well, because it's in Europe this year, we get to pick, and guess what? We put G2 up against the weakest team and coming out of groups. We think that's fair.
Yeah, I like Papa's idea about like a dynamic reseeding kind of thing, where if two teams are from the same region and there is a way to shuffle it, but not doing it in a like, I think this is a more interesting matchup. So league commissioner or head of esports or a panel of casters decide. Like all those don't really sound.
Hotline league callers.
Spawn, you want to be picking? You want to be picking quarterfinals matchups?
I'll do it. Like, what do I got to lose? Like, I'll make a compelling broadcast. Nah, like I kind of agree with Mike. Like, competitive integrity is a thing for a reason. I agree with the caller, but I just think the only ways to fix this are like crazy ways where like region takes precedent over group, and because like arguably it is more interesting to see even if they're from the same group, then play a best of 5 against each other than it would be to play the same region again, or like double elim style. Like I'm not smart enough to come up with a different rule set, so I think it sucks, but that's just the way it is.
I guess I would just want it to be where if you finish first in your group, obviously you're all separated. You're not going to play against another first seeded team from their group. I would just want the second teams, they would play someone that isn't from within their region.
Yep.
And within their group. So just do whatever to like get that out of the way, I guess.
Is there a world where that works? Because let's pretend hypothetically Europe got 4 out and China got 4 out. Could you actually do it where you're guaranteed to not play your group or your own region? Because remember, like the rule set has to cover anything. And I'm not saying it can or can't, because I'm an idiot that has loud opinions. So I'm going to say you can't, but I assume there's a rule like that for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, that's the tricky thing is like, if you have to actually do the math to make sure that these outcomes are possible. But I mean, you can also just write the rules to be like, if not possible, then this kind of thing, and you just make a flow chart of decisions. So I don't know. I ultimately agree with the caller. Do you guys want to do some predictions, Spawn? You want to predict outcomes with me?
I can do predictions. What do you want to predict first?
You want to just go from first to last?
Okay.
You go first.
Damwon 3-1.
Damwon 3-1. I might think.
Oh, we have to predict numbers too.
That's how you do it on the. You ever watch the broadcast ever?
No. Sorry. Okay. So we're starting with Damwon and DRX.
Yeah, it's the first one. It's Thursday.
Damwon 3-1 as well.
I think it makes sense. DRX is looking a little bit better than playoffs, but I'm still going the 3-0. All right. Suning versus JDG.
Suning 3-2.
Whoa, spicy.
I'm kind of like, I'm down to take Suning. I think in my play-in or pick'ems, I picked JD over Suning. Let me check actually. Because I'm kind of on the Suning hype train, especially after Ben got me all those points. No, I took JD getting out. Okay, I'll stick with my pick'ems then. I've got JD getting out. I'm gonna say 3-2.
Man, a lot of Twitch chats also with Suning. I guess people have gotten cold. I understand JDG lost to PSG and Suning looks really good. I think both teams are actually really well balanced.
Kanavi choking, brother. SOFM gonna do SOFM things to him.
Yeah, they didn't play in playoffs, and that was a big thing that people were sad about was not having this matchup in LPL playoffs. But I don't know. I feel like sometimes when Ben's really good, and I don't want to flame Ben, but like he's a little bit of a boomy or bust top laner, and I don't think he really got challenged too hard in groups.
Zoom also really good as well. Zoom is like arguably better than Ben.
Okay,
right, so that's what I'm saying is I'm a little concerned. So I'm still going JDG, but I do think the 3-2 makes sense.
Top Fnatic.
Top Fnatic, top win 3-0. Probably 57 minutes total game time across 3 games.
Oh boy.
Oh shit, let's go.
Is that what is the fastest best of 5?
I don't know. North America should be able to.
No, that's what I'm saying. Is I'm trying to remember what the number is. Are we hoping that they top just crush Fnatic and crush that record?
Yeah, we need some help. I mean, EU's not having a great year so far at Worlds. They've been okay, but you know, Rogue finishing below PSG, Mad Lions bustering out, losing the first international best of 5. It's time for another record. TSM, like the West is just setting records all over the place this year. Mad Lions setting the first time major region seed, not getting out, losing a best of 5. TSM first time.
Okay, I'll say top 3-1. I think something will happen, and Fnatic will get a game.
I think Jackie Love could lose like laning. He can be a little crazy. I could see them losing a laning.
Just remember, top lost to FlyQuest.
Look at Spawn's face.
Game that didn't matter. Like, yeah, I've also lost games that don't matter. Like, yeah, I lost a normal game the other day. Top didn't even think about that game.
I'm not sure if those are comparative situations.
I'm pretty sure they're comparative, Travis. Trust me.
Well, when you compare yourself to Brad Pitt, I'm starting to understand a little bit about where.
Hey, why don't you think about that LS video, Travis, before you tell Spawn that he's wrong?
Spawn, what a joke! This guy needs to stop making predictions just for the views. Anyway, sorry.
Do you know the thing is, Fnatic is so much better than I thought they were as well, and I'm still so confident in my top 3-0 because that's just how. Like, this isn't me. Like, Bwipo has actually been incredibly good. Selfmade has been exactly where I thought he would be, which is insanely talented jungler and so fun to watch. And Nemesis is better than I thought. And then, you know, their bottom lane. It's been there for a while. But this is still just a top team that is like, they should be considered in my head the favorite to win the whole damn thing. So you have to be so good to be able to go up against them. They're just so strong in 3 lanes.
We did a run it episode about top. So anyway, sorry, continue.
I would say 3-0 Fnatic or Jesus Christ, top as well.
TSM,
but
3-0 TSM.
I will say there's no way that's going to be the fastest one. Fnatic will win an early game. They're good. They're crazy. They're scrappy. They'll win an early game.
Through which lane?
I think through bot. Hilly. I mean, the most likely person to int on that team is usually Jackie Love, actually. And that's also where a lot of the power points have been for Fnatic in their wins. So if they can beat up Ruler in Life, they can beat up Jackie Love and Yu Yanja.
Let's do Genji G2. And I feel really bad, caller. I know you're here. I don't know why Mark launched us into this prediction game before we said goodbye to you. But do you disagree with us on any of these, Tuck?
No, I think I'm in agreement.
Okay.
I would just say I'd probably go for Suning as well, actually.
Okay.
Oh yeah, Tuck.
And then what's the Genji G2 match?
I'm going to say 3-2 G2.
I will say
3-1 Genji.
I'm a Spawn on the 3-2 G2. Mark is a hate boner for EU this year.
Massive hate boner for EU. I think the bot lane stuff I'm a little concerned about with G2 still.
I agree. I mismatched in the bottom lane.
And I think I'm most concerned about Clid versus Yankos and Caps and like BDD and Clit. I don't think they're fantastic together. But I actually think Rascal matches up really well into Wunder. So
Mark has the horror story of the LPL match and then the LCK match
Yeah. So the thing I will say about G2 is like, and I've complimented teams for this in the past, they have multiple looks they can throw at you, and therefore they're really hard to play in a best of 5. I don't think that they have the GNG have the flexibility that G2 have.
I think the whole like best of 5 team thing is usually kind of a meme, but I think G2 having really smart macro and being able to make really crazy plays and like it's kind of funny how many times that they've almost lost a game like at their nexus, but then they win and like all these and they've thrown at other teams' nexuses and stuff. So like they're wild, but like that kind of is actually like they end up ahead in all the wild situations. It feels like whenever they get into them.
Okay, caller, thank you so much. Is there anything you want to say before we move on to the next call?
No, thanks for having me. It was great. Shout out to Alienware. I have one of their monitors. Good stuff they got.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the call.
Thank you. Bye.
I reserve the right to flip any of those predictions at any point based off the backlash of said fan bases.
Yeah. I hope you get as much hate from G2 fans as I did last year for claiming they were not the best team in the world.
Bold of you.
It was, people were very unhappy. All right, last call. Fake, thank you for the Prime. Hinkley, thank you for the Prime. And OSTL Manly Puppet, thank you for the 8 months. Appreciate it.
All right,
Full Metal is here. Full Metal, where are you calling from?
Still in Denmark.
Oh, Denmark. Holy moly. I forgot. What do you want to talk about on the show?
Wow, Travis. Mark, what take did you want me to talk about on the show?
I pulled you for the salty FlyQuest fan.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so that the fact that I think that if TL or FlyQuest was in TSM's group, then they would have made it out.
Oh.
Did you say if TSM was in FlyQuest group?
No,
other way around.
Oh, if FlyQuest was in TSM.
If TL or FlyQuest had TSM's group, like they were against LDG, Gen.G, and Fnatic, then they would have made it out.
Oh. Explain.
Yeah, and well,
Anything
so first of all, TL took one game off each opponent in their group, and their opponents are G2, which I think we can all agree, right, that they're a better team than Fnatic. And they also took a game off Suning, which I think we can all agree is a better team than LDG. So that's the first thing. FlyQuest, they took a game on Top Esports, which I think is honestly a little questionable because I'm like, how much effort did Top come in with that game? Like, did they really expect them to give much of a fight?
Mm-hmm.
But that still could have happened if FlyQuest or TL was in the other group, that they opponents could have just really underestimated them, thought they were just going to roll over, save their prep for the other teams. So I think you can just look at the stats right there.
We're in agreement.
You said stats, but you didn't actually talk about any stats. You just gave me a whole bunch of narrative, which like the stats show that like, yeah, the record, sure, but the actual way the game's played out is that TL got off to an incredibly slow start, right? So I don't think if they play anyone week 1, I still think they lose those games. So what you're saying is they could have gone 3-0 in that group week 2 when they pulled it around. And did they play consistently well enough across any stage of Worlds for me to believe that they could go 3-0 in a major group to actually get out of that group? I'm going to say no. So like, I love TL. I bet I'm going to say like the 3-3 was probably the best result they would have got.
There goes the job offer. Better luck next time, Spawn. Enjoy Australia.
And
thanks.
To tag in on that, like, yeah, they lost to Machi in a disappointing way, but then they also beat them later. Like you talked about how some of their wins would have been easier. Some of their wins also would have been harder. Like the Machi win would have been harder, probably. Same with FlyQuest beating UOL twice. Like, there's no UOL in those groups. Okay. LGD is definitely a bit coin flippy and can lose some games that they shouldn't lose, and they struggled in play-ins, but by the time they showed up in the main stage, they were not playing the same way.
Specifically with TL, I think they would have 2-0'd LDG in week 1 and in week 2.
Well, their name's LGD, so we'll start there.
Yeah.
I think I don't know. What TL's first 2 games were bad. They were bad. That was lose to most teams in the tournament level bad. It's like those drafts and the way they played, like they turned to the round. You heard the interviews and they're like, "Oh, we had to flip our mindset and all this stuff." And once they did, yeah, they look good. But you have to remember to Spawn's point, those 2 losses are probably still coming. And
Yeah,
now you have to rip off 4 wins against better opponents.
Yeah, I watched the Brox
Some of
interview he
them.
had before Highland League, right? But I
Yeah.
think if TO came with that style of like their classic, like controlled, like slow game, I think that actually would have been potentially done well against LEG in the first week. And I also think, yeah,
Okay. Interesting. I
Yeah.
mean, I can say the argument. One thing you got to remember is LGD was like one of the slowest teams in China. That they're actually more well known for their team fighting and their control style as well. Kramer is a big team fighting AD carry, and Xie is a big team fighting mid laner. So like I can get on board now that we're actually in game and how these styles are going to match up. But I just want to like I think Mark and I are stuck on the same point, which is like if Team Liquid got to play the group stage now, would they make it out of their group? Like, I think we could have a more like constructive conversation about. But if they just ran back the form arc on which they took into Worlds, I don't think that form arc is actually good enough to get out of group.
Okay.
Does that make
to be clear, yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I'm actually taking that argument that if they came in the first week with their play style and then adapted in the second week, I just think they would have made it out of the group. Not taking their form now and applying and going back in time.
Okay.
And to point on Kramer, like I know historically he's been like a solid late game AD carry, but LDG as a team in the LPL, are you going to say they're like a solid like late game like decision making team?
I mean, they beat FPX and IG in best of 5. So, like, if you can beat back-to-back world champions, baby,
Yeah,
I'm
but
going to
was that in late game like decision making, or was that just like rolling them over?
No, absolutely, it was in late game decision making. Some of those games went
Okay.
incredibly deep, and they like played 10 games like back to back to back to back to back. Right, this is a team that is definitely full of like journeymen. Like this isn't their first rodeo, if you will.
I will say as well, like other than SOFM, there weren't that many great junglers in Group A, and so like that's one of the weak points when you start getting to matchups. Like Selfmade's really scary. Clit is a little hit or miss for sure, but Peanut's also aggressive, and so like I think the Group C is just a different group in a lot of ways in terms of play styles and stuff as well. I think it would have been really interesting to see though, because the TSM one, you can't do worse. Everyone would have done better. I'll give you that.
Well, thank you so much for the call. Unfortunately, we're very much over time tonight, Full Metal, but thank you for the call. Anything you want to say before we close out the show?
Props to Spawn. Like, best of luck what you're going through now. You're going to make it. Like, whenever I talk about you, my friends, I'm like, okay, this guy, I disagree with all the time, but I still really like him, like as a personality. So love you, Spawn.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. And Mark, last time I was on a show, like, my roommate, he just won't shut up. He's like, you got to talk to the amazing Mark Z. Oh my God, how does it feel? Are you like, how was it? Like, he's just a huge fan of you. So shout out to you too.
All right, tell him to get on here. And then he can get his crack and realize it's a massive disappointment. I can let him down.
Yeah, that's what I told him. He's just talking to someone on Discord. Like, yeah, Travis. Yeah, you forgot about me. So yeah, that's none. Yeah.
Goodbye.
Bye.
All right, that's the show. Let's see. Mark, you got any shout-outs, plugs, anything you want to say?
Nope. Well, shout out Ashley for being really patient tonight, and that's it.
Was she trying to go to
Spawn
sleep?
for coming on. Spawn, yeah. And Spawn. This was really. We talked a lot more on a lot of these topics. I didn't realize we have such great chemistry. I didn't even realize how great it was.
I apologize if I ran the show over a long time. That wasn't my intention.
Spawn, do you have any shout-outs, plugs? What do you want to shout out?
Yeah, obviously shout out to my current organization, Order, for being one of the top esports in OCE and like facilitating my growth. Obviously shout out to the whole of the Oceanic community as a whole. On top of that, right, for taking this in their stride and still battling for what they feel is like a really worthwhile domestic product. And I hope we as a region are listened to and that something does emerge from this and it comes back bigger and better than ever. And then obviously, shout out to all my sponsors, some of which we share. And if you haven't already, head over to @SpawnLol, because if you think I'm good here, you wait until you get me in a one-on-one situation, baby. The Brad Pitt of esports is just entertaining as all hell. But yeah, And shout out to Hotline League for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Spawn, for coming on. Thank you, Mark. Everyone, be sure to go to alienware.com/Travis and continue to play every day to win something. We'll be doing another show, I believe, on Monday. I think we can just resume our regular schedule. So stay tuned for that. And be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't. It's been Hotline League episode 144. That's what I thought.